This is Atomic Shinobi and today I'm going to narrate what if Naruto disappears after Kyuubi attack. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
With his wives by his side, Minato Namikaze was completing the Kyuubi's sealing. The Kyuubi's tail stabbed her before they both perished, and the Kyuubi was sealed away to honor Minato and Kushina for their sacrifice. The Sandaime Hokage briefly closed his eyes, ignoring the sobbing Naruto, and reflected, "I'll look after and protect your son for you both." The sobbing abruptly stopped at that moment, and Hiruzen opened his eyes, blinked, and turned to face Naruto. He thought, where is he? As he started to look around. Spread out and search the area for any survivors or anything suspicious, especially a baby. This woman has recently given birth, but I do not see her child. The Sandaime wondered, "Minato, where is your son at?" As a number of ninja appeared. A dog-masked Anbu approached Hiruzen and murmured, "Sandaime-sama, where's Sensei's son?" The Sandaime responded, "I don't know Inu, he was here moments ago when I closed my eyes to say a silent prayer and he vanished. He looks like his father, blonde hair, blue eyes and 3 whisker marks on his face. Spread out and search for him, but don't tell anyone what you're looking for," with a quiet voice. Inu leaps away and nods. A man wearing a white lab coat, meanwhile, picked up Naruto and reassured him, saying, "Don't worry, Naruto. Grandpa's going to take care of everything." 8 years later, time has passed. What the hell, nobody is allowed in there. Anko Mitarashi was close to the gates to the Forest of Death when she heard an explosion inside. She immediately leapt over the walls and entered the forest. She noticed smoke as she got closer to the scene of the explosion and discovered what appeared to be several dead 10-foot-tall tigers lying on the ground around a clearing. In the middle of the clearing, a figure kneeling over the body of one of the tigers was wearing a type of red, black, and gold armor with a black visor covering half of his face, leaving only the bottom of his nose and his chin visible, with blonde hair sticking out the back of the helmet and down his back. Before turning to face Anko, the figure got up, and Anko asked, "Who are you and what are you doing here?" The figure spoke in a language Anko was unfamiliar with and cocked his head slightly. Anko said, "What did you say? I couldn't understand you," with a perplexed expression. After speaking in a language that Anko had heard years earlier, the figure asked, "Can you understand this?" Anko appeared perplexed. Anko replied, "Yes, I can understand that language, but just barely. Who are you?" "My name is Zero. I understand your language a little as it is a variation of Japanese, but I would like to learn your language and culture. Who are you and as where am I?" The figure said in the same language as before. Anko looked at him and replied, "I am Anko Mitarashi and you are currently in the Forest of Death, but how did you get here?" Zero asked, cocking his head to the side, "Where are you from?" Anko replied, "I'm not the one answering questions. Either answer my questions or I'll take you back to the village to the Hokage." Zero responded, "Village Hokage, what is the name of your village and what is this Hokage? Is he the chief of the village or ruler there?" She thought, this guy must really be from far away, no wonder he speaks that language, then replied, "Yes, he is the leader of the Konoha." Zero replied, "Then take me to this village and to this Hokage, perhaps he may be able to help me." As she gestured, Anko scowled and said, "All right, this way." Zero started to move on the ground in that direction, and Anko watched over him. "Is this village on the other side of this wall?" Zero asked, scanning left and right for a gate as the walls came into view. "Yes," Anko replied. Zero replied, "How do you get on the other side? I do not see a gate." She wondered, how in the hell did this guy get in here in the first place? Then replied, "There are gates, but usually we go over the walls using chakra." "Chakra, what is that?" asked Zero. Sweat drop and uttered the words, How did you get in here?" Zero scowled and sprinted toward the walls, but before he could get too close, he leapt into the air and appeared to be thrown skyward. Startling Anko, she hurried to the other side and climbed the walls, where she saw Zero surveying the area. "How did you do that?" Anko asked. With a bewildered tone, Zero questioned, "Do what?" With a headshake, Anko said, "Never mind, follow me." 20 minutes later, Zero and Anko were strolling through the village when a number of people moved aside because they had never seen someone in Zero's attire, and a few Anbu started to follow them. One member of the Anbu team wearing a dog mask asked, "Who is this Anko and where are you taking him?" as the Hokage tower approached. According to Anko, he said his name is Zero and I found him in the Forest of Death. He seems to be from another land as he speaks a language I haven't heard in years, and I was taking him to see the Hokage in order to figure out what to do with him. In a language that only Anko understood, Zero questioned, "What's with the mask? Are they Reploids or Mavericks?" "What do you mean by Reploids and Mavericks?" Anko asked, blinking. What are the mask for?" Zero said, scowling and surveying the area. "Damn it, Anko snarled. Stop avoiding my questions. Inu inquired. What did he say? Anko. According to Anko, he asked me what was with the mask. He wanted to know if they were Reploids or Mavericks. I don't know what either means. It was stated by Inu that he understands our language. Anko replied, somewhat. He claims it's a variation of a language called Japanese that he knows. Let us take him to the Hokage, Inu said, scowling behind his mask. As she and the 4 Anbu lead him into the Hokage tower and, after knocking on the door, into the Hokage office, Anko nods and says, come on. The Sandaime Hokage said, who is this? As he glanced at the Anbu and Anko group with Zero. According to Anko, I found this guy in the Forest of Death in a clearing where several of the giant tigers were dead. He said his name is Zero and he speaks a language I heard back when I was with him. He can understand out language. I brought him here to find out what to do with him. Where do you come from and why are you here? The Sandaime asked after Zero glanced at him. Speaking the language Anko was familiar with, Zero continued, I am from a distant land and I am gathering info on these lands for my nephew. Anko was about to translate when the Sandaime said, I see. You understand him? Anko said, appearing somewhat taken aback. The Sandaime responded, yes, I know the language you are thinking he is speaking, but it isn't actually the language he is speaking. The last country to use the language he is speaking was destroyed years ago. Tell me, why is your nephew interested in our lands and what kind of information are you gathering? Zero responded, if I may ask, do you have a library? Sandaime replied, yes. Why? Zero replied, because I do not understand what you said and I would like to read your language a little to better understand what you said before I start to explain. I do not want to say one thing and find out in your language it means something else. According to the Sandaime, but that will take years to learn our language. No, I only need 48 hours, Zero replied. All right, 48 hours, but I would like to see what you look like under your mask, the Sandaime said after giving it some thought. Zero replied, I do not trust you yet and you do not trust me. You can assign a guard to watch me, but I will not remove my armor until I know if you are Reploids or Mavericks. After scowling, the Sandaime said, Mavericks, Reploids, what are those? With a perplexed expression. Zero looked at me and said, if you can give me 48 hours to study your library I can answer your questions. I have already stated my reasons to not answer now. The Sandaime puckered his lips and said, very well Anko, Anbu, take him to the library and watch him. He said he needs 48 hours to study our language to answer my questions. If after 48 hours he refuses to answer them, then I will send him to Ibiki. The others nodded, and Zero followed them out of the room. They arrived at the public library after a short while, and Anko greeted them by saying, have fun Gaki. Following a quick glance around, Zero picked up a book, opened it, and then, after a few seconds, turned one page, then another, and still another. Anko replied, aren't you going to read them Gaki instead of just glancing at them? Ignoring her, Zero continued to turn the pages. Anko sat down and said, whatever. Zero closed the book a few minutes later, picked up another, and carried on as before. What do you think? Asked Inu as he approached Anko. Zero interrupted Anko mid-sentence with, I think you shouldn't speak about people behind their backs. With wide eyes, everyone listened to Anko's statement, I thought you didn't speak our language. Zero replied, I didn't. The first book I read was a dictionary and the second book I am working on right now is a thesaurus. It has the THHES of how to say and pronounce words in your language. Anko replied, what was that word you used, the THEs or whatever it was? After pausing to give her a quick glance, Zero remarked, I don't know how to say that word in your language yet, but it means the accent of the words. Anko replied, oh, but how did you learn our language so quick? Zero returned to reading after saying, I'll explain later. Anko scowled and took a seat again. After 48 hours, Zero was still awake and had read more than 3/4 of the library's books, much to the surprise of everyone present. Everyone's attention was snapped to Zero when he said, 48 hours as agreed. I will speak with the Sandaime Hokage as I have much to discuss with him. How the hell are you still awake and not even need a restroom or lunch break? Inquired Anko, who had taken a nap in the library. I have my ways. Shall we proceed? Said Zero. The Sandaime asked, so Zero, were you able to learn our language? As they arrived at the Hokage office. In the same language as everyone else, Zero replied, yes. All right, tell me where you're from and why you're here, the Sandaime said. Zero replied, I can, but I ask that what I have to say be only heard by you Hokage-sama. It's a very sensitive subject, like what was so special about the Shodem and Yondaime's wives. While everyone else appeared perplexed, the Sandaime's eyes widened along with Inu's, and he said, I'll agree, but I request one guard. Zero replied, I assume you mean Inu since he reacted to what I said a moment ago. Zero said, very well. The Sandame nodded and scowled. The Sandame stated, all of you are dismissed, but you are forbidden to speak about anything that you saw or heard since encountering this person. Do you all understand? Before he dismissed them, Anko and the other three Anbu exchanged, hi. The Sandame used a privacy jutsu after they left, asking, now how do you know about that? Zero replied, tell me, what do you know about Minato Namikaze origins? According to Hiruzen, Minato was an orphan. Why? It was a long moment and he said, I can explain it but you won't believe me without proof. I know. Would you mind if I gave a small demonstration using one of your chairs? I think if you would allow me to demonstrate what I want, then you will be able to believe the rest of what I have to say. Will you allow me to demonstrate on one of these chairs? Hiruzen nods, his expression bewildered before his hand sank into his arm and a piece of metal encircled his arm, glowing. Zero said, thank you. A ball of energy blasted out of the tube and struck the chair, destroying it. While Hiruzen and Inu were both defensive and wide-eyed, Zero returned his hand to its natural position and uttered the words, that ball that destroyed the chair was similar to the Rasengan, was it not? What was that? Hiruzen asked as both men blinked. An energy blast. Zero said as Hiruzen put it, I want you to explain why you used that now. Zero replied, in order to explain the origins of the man you know as Minato Namikaze, or as I know him as Mega Man. With his lips pursed, Hiruzen remarked, very well, tell us your story, but know that I reserve the right to demand proof. Zero nods and said, the world as it is now is not the way the world has always been. Before the time of the man you know as the Six Realm Sage, human beings had grown and advanced to a point in time where they would replace their organs with machines that did the same things as their original organs, giving them longer lives, increased strength, higher intelligence and many other advantages. They also created a race of machines called Reploids, who were machines that looked like humans but were designed to do certain things that humans didn't want to do, like cleaning, cooking, gardening, fighting fires, and other things of that nature when they could be enjoying life. As such, over time humans began to die out or became more and more machine-like, while Reploids became more and more human-like until both races could no longer tell each other apart. It was decided by the people of the world there was no longer a real human race, just the race known as Reploids. Time passed and the world prospered for many years, unfortunately with all good things. Eventually something happens that causes a change in the world. This change was known as the Sigma virus. According to Inu, would you please be serious? When Zero grabbed his arm with his left hand up to his right elbow and twisted it, there was a pop sound. To Hiruzen and Inu's surprise, they discovered that his arm was made of metal and microchips rather than real. I am being serious, Zero said as he put his arm back on. You're a Reploid, Hiruzen said. Zero replied, one of the last full Reploids. Yes, the man I call father and myself are the last two full Reploids on our world and the last to know the history of the world. Both of us are over 3,000 years old, though our time is coming to an end soon, which is why my brother was sent to Konoha. As his eyes widened, Hiruzen said, your brother? Wait, you don't mean? Inu and Hiruzen's eyes widened when Zero reached up and removed his helmet, and Zero responded, yes, Minato Namikaze, or as I know him as Mega Man, was my brother. Then your nephew is, Inu said, named by Zero, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. After several minutes of silence, Hiruzen asked, why did you take Naruto? To shield him from the Sigma virus, Zero stated. Actually, the entity you are familiar with as Kyuubi is a maverick. A Reploid who has been tainted by the Sigma virus in order for Mega Man to blend in and lead a normal life while simultaneously getting ready to aid the world in the future. His memories of his life as a Reploid were erased when he was sent here. Hiruzen inquired, what do you mean by what is to come? Zero stated, I explained to you how, prior to the arrival of the Sigma virus, the entire world had turned into a Reploid. I didn't tell you what transpired after it showed up or how the corruption of the Sigma virus didn't wipe out life on this planet. The Sigma virus turns a Reploid evil. You see, when they get to the point where they enjoy causing pain, suffering, and destruction, they are referred to as Mavericks. Thousands of Mavericks were killed to prevent the spread of the Sigma virus, and millions of people died at the hands of Mavericks. I won't go into the specifics of the world at the time, other than to say that it looked like a war zone. Mega Man and I were two of the world's top Maverick hunters, hunting down and killing the Mavericks while defending the Reploids. To ensure the survival of the world's leading scientists convened and determined that we must take a step backwards in order to take 2 steps forward, Zero said, closing his eyes. All of the human DNA that was still in existence was gathered, examined, and eventually cloned. Over the course of 200 years, the scientists were able to reconstruct human bodies and restore the world to its former splendor. You all take credit for something you call chakra, but it is not exactly what you believe it to be. In actuality, the power generated by nanites within your body is called chakra. Smaller than red blood cells, nanites are microscopic machines. The scientists developed these nanites to enable the world to move forward in the same direction as before, but an issue arose almost 400 years ago. The man known as the Six Realms Sage did not aid humanity. Rather, he endangered it all. He created the Biju and infected them with the Sigma virus after finding the body of the last maverick that still had the virus. Hashirama Senju, the founder of your village, gave aid of the Biju to other countries in the hopes of bringing about world peace while keeping the Kyuubi here. In reality, he may have contributed to the demise of the world by aiding in the spread of the Sigma virus, which has now infected almost every man, woman, and child on the planet and is starting to affect people everywhere. Since you both justified the deaths of more than 200 men, women, and children by arguing that it was for the greater good, you have both seen evidence of this by observing the behavior of those in your village and how it has changed over time. Even if the parents posed a threat, what threat did the children pose? Think about your own student Orochimaru, how he changed over the years, how people became nothing more than test subjects for him in order for him to complete his own goal, Zero said, as Inu looked perplexed and Hiruzen's eyes widened. Are you here to destroy us? Asked Hiruzen with a frown. No, Zero replied, as I mentioned, the next generation has taken over the torch and my time is almost up. In a year, my nephew will be visiting Konoha. He will bring something that will give you and everyone else a chance when he arrives. Both the Sigma virus and the Kyuubi have been eliminated from him. Either he will succeed and save the world, or he will fail and ruin it. He is only one individual. He will save the world if he can win allies and get stronger. He will fail and the world will be destroyed if he stands by himself. Whether you want to support him or oppose him is up to you. I ask that you both keep what you have heard confidential and consider what I have said. If you want to assist him, consider those in your life who are similar to Orochimaru. Those who have devolved into self-centered mavericks who cause pain, suffering, and destruction to everyone in their path because they are only interested in themselves and their own objectives from now until my nephew arrives. Make a list. You are an example of what I mean. Hitaki Kakashi, so don't judge him based on his age because, despite his youthful appearance, his mind is not a child prodigy. He is your only remaining hope. Goodbye, he said as he vanished, engulfed in white light. Hiruzen said, I am starting to question every decision I have ever made. Kakashi, I look back at them and I find myself lacking, as Inu glanced down at him. Inu replied, hindsight is 20/20 sir, what should we do? After a brief period of silence, Hiruzen said, Kakashi, I believe we should follow his advice, but we should also keep an eye on ourselves. Let's hope for the best and be ready for the worst, but keep what you've seen and heard to yourself. Yes, sir, Inu replied. Is that all? According to Hiruzen, at least we know Naruto's safe. Yes, Inu replied. That is a cause for celebration. The smirk behind the Anbu mask made Hiruzen say, go get lost on the road of life, Inu, before I send you to catch Tora. 5 seconds later, Inu vanished in a whirlpool of foliage. I wonder if Tora is also infected with Sigma, Hiruzen said, laughing. It could explain her demon cat behavior. The Sandaime Hokage was in his office completing paperwork 2 months after Zero had left Konoha when a Chunin barged in and yelled, emergency sir. Just as the Sandaime was about to chastise the Chunin, he said, report. There appears to be an epidemic of some sort, sir, the Chunin said. More than 75 patients have visited the hospital, sir, with some form of plague on their skin, and the number is growing. Hiruzen sighed and replied, what have the doctors discovered about this plague, and what are the symptoms of those infected, and what is the cause and how is it transferred? We don't know exactly how it is transferred, sir, but we think it is airborne, the Chunin said. We had an old man come in with it covering more than a quarter of his body. In essence, sir, it's making his skin turn into metal. Metal, said Hiruzen. Are you certain? And wondered, could this have something to do with that? Yes, sir, the Chunin replied. His skin is turning black, and despite our best efforts, it appears to be steadily spreading throughout the victim's body. The doctors even attempted to amputate the contaminated limbs, but to their amazement, the plague seemed to grow the limb back as metal. When a doctor who was infected himself attempted to use fire jutsu to kill a patient, the patient died, but the damage started to mend itself and the victim resurrected once they were fully covered in metal. The victim started attacking everyone. What ought we to do? Seal off the village and banish anyone who shows symptoms, regardless of rank, social status, or severity of the symptoms, Hiruzen said with a frown. We must prevent the spread of this plague to those who are not infected. Is this Thier doing? Hiruzen thought, cursing. In the meantime, An elderly man wearing a white lab coat stood and scowled while examining the reports he was receiving on his computer screen. Standing next to him, a 9-year-old boy with blonde hair, blue eyes, and 3 whiskers on each cheek, gazed at the screen and asked, "Grandpa Light, what should we do?" "I'm afraid there is nothing we can do right now that we aren't already doing," Light stated. "Your uncle has already been dispatched to collect a sample for me before we take any more chances. We need to understand what we are dealing with. Both your uncle and the sample must remain in quarantine. I apologize that we are unable to do more." Naruto. "I know, Grandpa," Naruto sighed. "I simply feel like helpless. It's the curse of the Light family," Light said. "We all want to alleviate people's suffering, but we feel helpless to do so. Fortunately, our gift also comes with a curse." "What gift, Grandpa?" asked Naruto, looking perplexed. "The stubbornness to persevere and find a way to improve it," Light said with a laugh. "Come on. Your uncle has the sample in the remote lab. We must get to work analyzing the data right away." With a resolute expression, Naruto said, "All right, let's go." Naruto walked over and pressed a button on the wall, saying, "Hey uncle, how's it going in there?" as he and Light entered a different lab that was connected to the one Zero was in. Naruto and Dr. Light were in the room when there was a roar followed by an explosion. 4 years later, time has passed. "It's done," Light said, wiping the perspiration from his face. "Are you prepared to give him life again?" Zero's voice said, "Yes, Dr. Light," saying, "Initiate revival sequence." Light nodded. "Revival sequence initiated," Zero stated. "Come on, child." A teenage boy with blonde hair started breathing on a table in front of Dr. Light. After a short while, the boy groaned and opened his eyes slowly, revealing blue ones. "Can you hear me, Naruto?" Dr. Light asked. With a moan, Naruto uttered, "What happened? I have a headache. Has Uncle Zero kicked me in the ass again?" There was a chuckle in the words, "You seem to be doing okay, kid. The procedure appears to have been successful." After a moment of feeling lightheaded and blinking, Naruto exclaimed, "Whoa, the room's spinning. What happened? What procedure?" "I was scared of this," Dr. Light sighed. "What do you remember from the last time, Naruto?" Naruto looked up and replied, I remember Uncle coming back with a sample of the virus and you had asked me to help you study the data. After that I'm drawing a blank." "I see," Dr. Light said. "Listen to me carefully, Naruto, and don't talk until I'm done. 4 years have passed since that day. We were unaware that your uncle had become a maverick and had contracted the virus as rapidly as he did when you and I first began reviewing data. I was blown into another lab by the explosion, and you were caught in the blast and seriously hurt when he used his buster cannon on the wall between our room and his. Mega Man's original body was in the lab before your uncle entered the room and managed to injure Zero long enough to put him in stasis, and then you, to save your life, I was able to activate his buster cannon. Fortunately, my contamination suit was intact when I was blown backwards and I had it on just in case. Since then, I've been doing research to identify the virus and learn how to both cure it and heal you." As he looked around in confusion, Naruto remarked, "That's great. That means you got a cure. Since I heard Uncle Zero, so where's he?" Dr. Light let out a sigh. "I'm afraid your uncle's body is sealed away as I have not found a way to permanently cure him yet. He is a Generation 1 Reploid like me, while you, Naruto, are part of the Neo Generation Reploids. Due to the fact Zero and I have been training you to take over for us to help lead the Neo Generation into the future, I haven't really worried too much about us and instead been focusing on healing you and also working on a cure for the Neo Reploids, which I have been able to do with your uncle's help." Naruto replied, "But you said Uncle Zero was still in stasis. How could he help you?" "Dr. Light has downloaded my mind into the computer's main system while my body is in status. This has allowed me to still help him, nephew," said Zero, speaking through a speaker. When Naruto realized what had been said, he said, "Oh." Dr. Light stated, "Naruto, I'm afraid things have gone badly with the rest of the world. We believe you are currently the only non-infected Neo-Reploid left in the world. The rest of the world has been infected by the Neo-Sigma virus, as we have come to call it. But why am I not infected by it like everyone else? Even Uncle Zero was infected," asked Naruto, looking perplexed. Dr. Light explained, "The reason you're not infected by it is your nanites are currently out of sync with what they should be. You had the Kyuubi sealed in you who had the original Sigma virus, which caused your nanites to begin to sync with his settings, but because we removed the Kyuubi so soon after the process started, your nanites had 3 separate partial sync frequencies that rewrote into a new code. As you got older, basically you're not compatible with the Neo Sigma virus." Naruto inquired, "So what does that mean?" Zero responded, "It means you're basically the only chance the world has, kid." Dr. Light let out a sigh. "As much as I hate to say it, he's right. I've been able to find a way to fight the Neo-Sigma virus, but it's going to take a lot of hard work for the cure to be given to the world. It's going to be extremely dangerous and you're basically going to be on your own for a while. It's your choice, Naruto. You can sit here and we can try to find another alternative, or you could risk everything to try and save the world. I can't make this choice for you, it's up to you." With a resolute expression, Naruto asked, "Grandfather, what do you need me to do?" When Dr. Light nodded, the side wall started to open, and Naruto turned to face the blue armor. "That's," he said, blinking. Dr. Light said, "That is your father's original Mega Man armor. Your uncle insisted that we prepare it ahead of time because he knew you would want to help everyone now instead of waiting. You have to understand though, Naruto, right now you are going to be extremely disadvantaged. We had planned for you to fit in with normal Neo-Reploids, which is why we never trained you to be a fighter. You were supposed to learn to fight from the other Reploids. This means you're not ready for any of the more advanced weapon systems your uncle used either. You're basically going to have this armor for protection and the Buster Cannon as a weapon until you can find and defeat a Maverick who has combat experience, and then like your father you will be able to copy that. You will only be able to copy 10 attacks total, so you will have to pick and choose which attacks you want to copy and keep, and you can only copy one attack at a time per Maverick. Mavericks regenerate, Naruto, so you won't have very long after you defeat them to get them to the regeneration ball." "What's the regeneration ball?" inquired Naruto. Light pulled out a blue ball the size of a basketball as well as several bracelets and said, "This is called a regeneration ball. I've only created one right now. These bracelets, when worn, will draw the Neo Sigma virus out of a Reploid or a Maverick and use the energy to power a dome around the person. I will be putting over the first village you go to. Since you won't be able to use chakra at first, I've pre-charged the Buster Cannon with enough energy to fire 50 shots. After that you will be out of ammo and will need to recharge. You will have to be inside the village where the regeneration ball is in order to recharge. You won't be able to use chakra at first until you copy that info from someone who knows how to use it, and you will also have to be careful with your chakra usage because every time you use chakra you will be giving the Neo Sigma virus a chance to infect your body, putting its code in you. Once you copy how to use chakra you will become vulnerable to the Sigma virus. If you completely run out of chakra then you will become completely infected, but as long as you wear one of these bracelets and stay in the village with the regeneration ball you will be able to recover. Also, the more infected you become the longer it will take for you to regain your chakra. You can't regain your chakra until all of the Sigma virus has been removed from your body." Naruto replied, "You really know how to give a guy a handicap." Light replied, "Sorry, anyways, I've included a power gauge in your visor that will tell you how much chakra you have as well as how much ammo you have in your cannon. It would be best to use your Buster Cannon and any attacks you copy into it instead of using chakra, keep that in mind." Naruto replied, "Will I be able to recruit any of the other Reploids to help?" Light replied, "Yes, I've made these bracelets where they can replicate themselves from the nanites in a Reploid body. They can only make one bracelet per day, and if they use up all their chakra or leave the regeneration zone then they could become a Maverick again, so they have to be careful. I'm afraid that is all the help I can give you for now. Are you sure you want to do this?" Examining the armor, Naruto grinned and declared, "I am Mega Man's legacy, call me Mega Man NX." With broken windows, holes in the walls, debris in the streets, and the deathly silence that seemed to hang over the area as if a monster lurked in the shadows of the ruins, the village of Konoha appeared to be a war zone. Now, in the middle of the Konoha civilian sector, Naruto, or NX as he calls himself, emerged in a beam of light in his armor. He looked almost exactly like his father, Mega Man, except that the chest plate of his armor had a gold NX painted across it, which would have resembled an hourglass if it weren't for a red streak in the X and a silver streak mixed into the N. When NX arrived, he lifted the Buster Cannon on his left arm into the air and blasted a ball of energy into the air. As the ball of energy shot more than 200 feet into the air, it vanished, and the regeneration ball took its place. It then started to shoot down a blue beam of energy, making the energy appear to be a pyramid that covered a 10-foot area. "That's not very big," NX thought as he stood in the center of the regeneration zone. "Hopefully I can get some others quickly or I'm going to be in a lot of trouble." NX started to leave the regeneration zone down the road. While glancing at his energy bar he turned after 100 yards, started down an alley between the streets, and eventually reached another main road. Glancing around, he started to walk down to the next road with another ally. As he heard the sound of rubble falling to the ground on top of other rubble, he thought, "Why are there not more people here? I know Zero told me Mavericks were territorial, but they would challenge for a territory, gaining more territory until they lost to someone stronger than the one that won would take over the territory of the one they defeated, while the one they defeated looked for someone weaker than them to take their area while also gaining power from the ones they defeat and losing power to the ones they lose to. Wait, what was that?" He saw two Mavericks fighting and hid behind a corner. As he cautiously headed in the direction the sound was coming from, one of them seemed to be a young woman with black metal covering her skin, and the other was a taller, older man with the same black metal covering his features. It seemed the man was trying to hit the girl with a club while the girl was throwing what Naruto believed to be knives at him, but the knives exploded slightly when they struck the man, wounding him. NX looked confused. What should I do? I could attack one to help the other, but then the victor would attack me. I could wait until one defeated the other, or I could attack both. I'm not strong enough to carry the man back to the regeneration zone, so I'll attack both and then give the bracelet to the girl and take her back to the regeneration zone before she recovers. Keeping that in mind, NX pointed his buster cannon at the man, who was the bigger target, and fired. Unfortunately, the man sidestepped as the energy blast blasted past him, destroying a building's wall. Both the man and the girl turned to face Naruto, and as he rolled to the side, the girl threw a knife at NX, who exclaimed, "Oh shit." NX saw both of them charging at him as the knife exploded when it struck the wall where he had been. He immediately got up and started running, both of them pursuing him, thinking, "Oh shit, someone help, come on, think." NX thought, "That's it," as he turned the corner into the main road and began running as quickly as he could in the direction of the regeneration zone. Both of his pursuers were pursuing him from behind and were closing the gap. When Naruto entered the regeneration zone, he stumbled over some rubble and fell to the ground, almost getting NX first scared. He turned quickly to see the man standing above him, holding a club, ready to kill him. Naruto raised his arm and fired the buster cannon as the club started to fall, shocking the man by hitting it and destroying it. When Naruto saw this, he started shooting at the man's chest, first damaging the metal skin. 3 more shots were then fired in the general vicinity of the man's chest, and the third shot actually pierced the man's chest, damaging his organs and sending him to the ground, too injured to fight any further. After searching for the girl and discovering that she had left, Naruto turned to face the man, removed one of the bracelets from his wrist, and put it on him. He thought, "Mission 1 success," before collapsing against him because he was too exhausted from running and afraid to stay awake. When Naruto woke up, he moaned and got up to investigate what had happened after sensing his bed shifting. Behind him, a terrified voice asked, "Where am I? What's going on? Who are you?" Naruto blinked as everything returned to him and he saw a man who resembled the man he had fought, but without the metal skin. He said, "I'm Mega Man NX, but you can call me NX." When he noticed the remains of the faces on the Hokage mountain, the man appeared to relax and then started to look around, saying, "What is this place? No, it can't be." According to Naruto, this village was Konoha 4 years ago. 4 years? That's impossible, the man said. Naruto put his hand on the man's shoulder and said, "Calm down, you're still recovering from the virus." He uttered, "Virus? The plague?" Naruto stated, "It's called the Neo Sigma virus. Everyone in the world has been infected by it except me." According to the man, "Except you? How? Why weren't you infected?" "Look, I need you to listen to me. Do you see that glowing orb in the sky above us?" Naruto asked, surveying the area. The man raised his eyebrows and said, "That orb is connected to the bracelet you're wearing. The bracelet is fighting the virus inside of you as we speak. Do you know how to use chakra?" "No," the man replied. Naruto replied, "Well, good, that's good. The virus is related to chakra. The reason I am currently immune to it is because I am currently unable to use chakra because of a unique condition. Everyone else in the world has chakra except me, and even if you're not a ninja, you still produce a small amount of chakra. That chakra, when it reacts to the virus, causes the virus to spread and grow. The bracelet draws the chakra from your body and uses it to power the orb in the sky. As long as you are under the light the orb produces, you will be protected from the virus as long as you don't use chakra. Do you understand what I am telling you?" The individual replied, "You're saying that if I go out of the light then I will be infected again?" Naruto replied, "Yes, the more mavericks I can get under the light and give a bracelet to, the more area the light will cover." The man asked, looking perplexed, "What's a maverick?" According to Naruto, a maverick is a person who is completely infected by the virus. What was the last thing you remember? "I was hiding in my home's basement when the ninja kicked anyone who had the virus out of the village. I remember getting it too, and I was afraid of becoming a monster. That was the last thing I remember," the man recalled. "I see. It seems that you have no memories of your time as a maverick. That is probably for the best anyway. I hate to say it, but I have to go and try to save others," NX said, glancing at his power level in his visor. "You must remain here until I get back." "Wait, please don't leave me," the man said. "I'll be back," Naruto declared. "Simply remain here and complete your recuperation." He put his hand on the man's shoulder and blinked as the information dawned on him. So he just knows how to swing a club like an axe, he thought. "I'll be back." Despite his apparent fear, the man nods, and Naruto turns to return down the street, thinking, "I wonder why the girl didn't attack." NX was tackled from behind while he was still near the regeneration zone, strolling around the village. He was picked up and flung down the alley while struggling. After striking the ground with force, NX turned to face his assailant and realized it was a woman thinking, let's try the same trick again. He turned and fled, while the woman pursued him. When he arrived at the regeneration zone, he noticed that the man he had saved was swinging a piece of metal at an adult male maverick who was holding a knife. When the other man saw the female maverick pursuing him, he screamed and started to flee, and NX thought, coward. NX raised his hand and fired his buster cannon at the maverick, and the knife struck him in the arm, causing him to scream in agony before turning to face NX. When the knife-wielding maverick started to run toward NX, he turned to see the woman was still after him and thought, shit, what do I do? NX stopped thinking and fell to the ground when he saw the male maverick jump at him, causing the male and female mavericks to collide. Seeing an opportunity, NX turned and fired blast after blast into both mavericks, hitting them at least 6 times before leaning forward to catch his breath and yelling, hey coward, a little help please. Seeing both mavericks down, the man peered out from behind the wall and uttered the words, you killed them. As he walked over and placed his hand on the male maverick's head, thinking, this guy must have been some kind of chef to use a knife like that. He then put a bracelet on the man's wrist and walked over to the woman, thinking, she's got some actual taijutsu skills. After saying, no, they can't die, they are only too damaged to fight anymore right now, help me move them under the light so I can put a bracelet on them so they can start to be cured like you. It's more than me, but not much, he said before putting a bracelet on her as well. Either you get over here and help me move these two into the light or I will take your bracelet back, the man said, scowling as NX turned to face him where he was still hiding. No, the man yelled, not that, please I'll assist, but I'll have to leave the light. NX let out a sigh and said, you can get out of the light for a little bit, more than enough time to help me move these two. Reluctantly, the man approached NX and the two mavericks and started to assist them in moving into the now small yard-sized light. The man said, now what? After they were both inside the light. NX replied, we wait, but he thought, that woman was a lot stronger than me. What did Grandpa tell me about taijutsu again? Rewind. Naruto was wearing his armor and Light said, now remember Naruto, you can only copy 10 attacks to use with your buster cannon instead of chakra, but you can learn to use chakra to use attacks also, but you will cause the virus to infect you some if you do. However, those 10 attacks are solely based on chakras, Zero stated. You can learn taijutsu and kenjutsu just like you can energy attacks, but unless you practice them, you won't be as proficient at using them as the person you're copying. It's similar to reading a book that explains how to do things first, then practicing them. You will be able to learn more to better yourself after you put them into practice. This is applicable to almost everything you learn that isn't essentially a genjutsu or ninjutsu. Finish the flashback. Well, NX thought, I'm exhausted. He looked at the man standing there and said, I'm tired, I'll rest to regain my energy before I begin practicing that taijutsu. She knew, I'll head over there and take a short nap. Wake me up if you see someone coming or if either of them wakes up. If not, let me go to sleep. But, the man said. Look, NX said, you can either contribute to the issue or help find a solution. In any case, you have nothing better to do than stand watch. Taking a deep breath, the man said, a light, I'll do it. NX said, good. He then moved to a partially constructed wall, leaned against it, and quickly dozed off. NX thought, why did the first guy have to save be such a fuck up and basically useless? Oh well, I might as well start learning that taijutsu. He woke up a few hours later to find the damage on the two mavericks had nearly been repaired, and he started to perspire when he noticed the guard had fallen asleep leaning against a telephone pole. After 2 hours of training the following day, Naruto heard conversation and woke up to discover that all 3 of the others were awake. He said, hi, to get their attention. As the 2 new men exchanged glances, the woman said, hello. After stretching and getting to his feet, Naruto asked, has he told you both what's going on? The stranger replied, he said we had to stay in the light or we would be covered by this virus or plague again. After noticing that he had run out of bracelets, Naruto said, since I can't go rescue anyone, I guess I'll wait. He then raised his hand to his helmet, pushed it to the side, and said, hey, anyone hear me? All of a sudden, everyone heard Dr. Light say, I read you, Mega Man, go ahead. So far, I have saved 3 Reploids, Naruto declared. However, I'm going to wait another day to get my misplaced recovery bracelets back, but I have a small problem. None of us have any food, and I'm getting tired of continuously explaining things. Is there anything you can do to help me? I've been working on something because I thought you would have this problem, Dr. Light stated. Hold on. After a brief period of silence during which the woman was about to speak, a beam of light appeared in the center of the group. When the light cleared, a blue circle building with 6 computer monitors evenly spaced around it, each with a slot underneath it, was revealed. Hello. "You can call me Doc," said Dr. Light as the monitor turned on. The capsule is an invention that is this building. It is intended to aid in both the global recovery from the Neo-Sigma virus and the search for lost loved ones who may have been dispersed throughout the globe in order to help you get back to your friends or family more quickly and expedite the recovery process in the event that they are rescued. It would be greatly appreciated if each of you would kindly step in front of the monitor one at a time and respond to any questions I ask. When Naruto stepped in front of a monitor, Doc said, Mega Man, how can I help you?" on the screen. Naruto replied, "How is this capsule going to help us with our food issue?" According to Doc, each person will receive one ration bar from the capsule each day since we don't know how long it will take for the body to recover. The ration bar contains everything the body will require, including food and water. Do you want your daily allotment? Yes, Naruto replied. Naruto walked over and sat down to eat after a ration bar emerged from the slot beneath the monitor. Doc said, "Now please tell me your name, Miss, and your original home village you were in before the virus was released as well as your occupation before you were infected." After the other three approached the kiosk after the woman went first. The lady replied, "My name is Amy Hedo and I am originally from Konoha and I was a clerk at the Good as New thrift shop." Doc replied, "Hello Amy, do you have any questions you need answer or are you here for your daily ration?" Amy replied, "Can I do both, ask questions and eat?" "Of course, but as more people are saved, you have to realize that you will have less and less time to ask questions so that people can get their daily ration to avoid starvation." Doc said it would be appreciated if you would be open to asking general questions as well as others and letting them know so they won't have to ask the same question later. "Yes, that will work." Amy said, "How many individuals have been saved from this plague or virus?" Doc stated, "As of right now only those currently present have been rescued, though you are the first to be rescued." Amy began to inquire about the virus's origins and looked down, saying, "I see." When NX resumed the katas after eating, the other three noticed and Amy inquired, "Why are you doing Academy Taijutsu?" NX said, I'm doing your taijutsu," after giving her a quick glance. The others took notice of this, and Amy questioned, "What do you mean?" NX stated, "Until the day I saved the scaredy cat over there, I had never done anything that could be construed as a fight in my life. I've spent my entire life being brought up as a scientist." NX pointed to a man who said, "My name is Ryu." "Well, you never told me your name," NX remarked. "In any case, this armor is similar to the Sharingan because I'm not sure how to fight, but it lets me copy one attack or combat experience from a maverick I defeat. I learned a little bit about how to use a club from Ryu, a little bit about how to use a knife from him, and a little bit about taijutsu from you, but I still need to train my body to use all of that knowledge," he said as he kept practicing. Naruto looked over after practicing for a few hours and said, "Hey Ryu, come here." Upon approaching, Ryu exclaimed, "What?" Naruto stated, "If you're unaware, these bracelets function by creating a duplicate of themselves to be used in saving others after a predetermined period of time so that I can go out and try to get someone else tomorrow. Let me have yours." When Ryu noticed that each arm had a bracelet, he asked himself, "How did that get there?" and removed one to give to NX, who then put it on his own wrist. "Why aren't you going right now?" inquired Amy. NX replied, "Because I am still almost out of energy from saving you 3 inches," and he thought, "Damn it, I'm only one person." The following day, Naruto woke up earlier than any of the 3 adults and started his daily routine of going a short distance away and searching for someone. 4 hours later, Naruto thought, "Well, shit, where are they? Well, I suppose I'll go back and eat and rest for a bit." "Oh, you must be kidding me. Uncle Zero mentioned that humans do this, but animal mavericks do it as well. Come on," he said, observing 10 female mavericks his own age and 1 male maverick fleeing from the females. When Naruto heard a growl from above, he looked up and saw a girl on top of the building above him. He thought, "What the hey, it's the girl from the first day." Before vanishing from view, the girl shook her head, glanced down at NX, and made a hand gesture. "Did she just tell me go ahead or something?" Naruto asked himself. Naruto reflected on the scene before him and said, "Even if I were to defeat them all and bring them back, I wouldn't have enough bracelets to do so. I currently only have 2, both Ryus and my respective ones. Let's see if I can't find an easier target," he said, backing away and moving in a different direction. "I'll have 4 to use tomorrow since the other 3 will be making 1 a day on top of the 1 I make." Naruto was returning to the regeneration zone as the sun was beginning to set when he heard an ally scream. As he turned to face the ally, he noticed a maverick standing over the body of another maverick. Both were adult males, and Naruto noticed that the one on the ground had a hole in his chest. Upon seeing the adult maverick still standing, NX approached the body on the ground, placed his hand on the maverick's head, and scowled since he had not received any information from him. I can only get information from them if they still have energy from my attack. He put a bracelet on him, grabbed the Maverick's arms, and started dragging him away from the ally. I'm sorry buddy, but I've got to try and drag you. Naruto yelled, "Hey, I need help over here," as he fired a blast into the air, attracting the attention of the others. After 2 hours of dragging, when he was within 50 yards of the regeneration zone. When Ryu and the other man, whose name Naruto discovered was Ken, arrived, Naruto remarked, "I got lucky and found someone else." Amy asked, "How did you put that hole in his chest?" As Naruto hurriedly grabbed his ration and sat down after returning the Maverick to the regeneration zone. "Wasn't me," said Naruto. "I hope you guys don't mind keeping watch and not sleeping on us." Ryu, "Because I'm exhausted from finding him after a fight with another Maverick." "Fuck you kid," Ryu said. "I was worn out. Get some rest." Amy said, "If we are attacked, you are the only one who can defend us, so we must cooperate." NX thought, "What a day," and said, "Thanks." When Naruto woke up the following morning, he discovered that the man he had found the day before had been healed but was still not there. Ken replied, "Morning NX, how are you feeling today?" "That guy was heavier than I thought he was," Naruto exclaimed. "If I want to attract more people, I must become stronger. I'm glad you four were so close. Where is Amy?" Ken said, "The RZ," pointing to a nearby building. Blinking, Naruto uttered, "RZ? What's that?" "The regeneration zonia anyway. As I mentioned, the RZ grew sufficiently to encompass that structure," Ken remarked. "She's searching through it to see if there's anything we can use in case you missed it. Our clothes were destroyed when we turned into Mavericks, and regardless of what the virus did to us, we ended up with this armor-like attire that now appears to be ordinary clothes. However, pay attention to how his clothes changed from a blue short-sleeve shirt to a white long-sleeve shirt. As his armor appeared to vanish and he was revealed wearing a blue shirt and black pants, Naruto's eyes widened behind his visor and he uttered the words, I wonder." As the man's eyes widened and a female gasp came from the side, Amy said, "Yandaime-sama." This caught the attention of both Ken and Naruto. "Oh, I apologize, I forgot," Naruto said, blinking briefly. "I'm his son, and my real name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze," he said shortly after donning his Mega Man armor once more. Ken replied, "But that's not possible, Yandaime-sama didn't have any children. I was born the day Kyuubi attacked," Naruto declared. "Since both of my parents passed away that day, my grandfather saved me from the mayhem and took me back to his house to grow up with my only family." Ken replied, "Oh sorry, I'm surprised nobody known about you. The Sandaime and Hitaki Kakashi did, but I had never met them before," Naruto remarked. "However, my uncle did in any case. May I have both of your extra bracelets? Yesterday, I witnessed a sizable contingent of female Mavericks pursuing a male Maverick. Even though they weren't attacking him in any case, I was considering." "Don't save them yet, those are fangirls," Ken said, slapping his hand over Naruto's mouth while appearing pale. "Please hold off on saving them until we have saved at least 100 people, or I'll leave and turn into a Maverick once more to get away from them." When NX turned to face Amy, she replied, "So would I." Naruto looked at him and replied, "All right, I'll wait to save them till later. But what's so bad about fangirls, and what exactly is a fangirl?" Everyone's attention was drawn when Naruto heard a male voice say, "Pray you never find out, Namikaze-san." "Hello. How are you feeling?" said Naruto. "Tired. Where am I? What happened?" the man asked. Amy replied, "Naruto-sama, why don't you go ahead and do what you need to and I'll get this guy set up." "Yeah, but it's just Naruto," Naruto said. "For the most part, I'll likely use my codename, Mega Man NX. What about those bracelets?" After receiving the additional bracelets from Amy and Ken, Naruto said, "All right, I'll be back later." "Welcome back, eh?" "Iruka, my name is Iruka Amino," the man said. Iruka glanced at the others and asked, "Would you tell me what's going on, Amy?" As Naruto nods and grabs a ration before starting to leave. "You do remember me, Iruka," Amy said. Iruka replied, "Yeah, it's kind of hard to forget someone who tried to kill you with an exploding tag." "I was 7, Iruka," Amy said. "In any case, let's go register you, get you a bite to eat, and then I'll begin to explain." NX returned 6 hours later, carrying a second woman on his back. Iruka rushed over to help Naruto as soon as he saw him, gasping when he saw the hole in the woman's chest. Naruto fell to the ground as soon as the weight was removed from his back. When Naruto woke up the following morning, he was lying on a bed. He blinked and realized he was in a room. He got up and went outside, where he discovered that everyone was sitting quietly talking and that the woman he had found the day before was still getting better. When Amy saw Naruto, she inquired, "Are you okay, Naruto?" "A little tired," Naruto yawned after being attacked by the same maverick who vanquished Iruka. I located the woman here. I would have returned sooner, but I had a hard time navigating around other mavericks, who appear to be aware that there aren't as many of them in this area anymore. After grabbing his ration, Naruto begins to eat. Iruka asked, "What are you doing?" as he got up after eating and began going over the katas once more. Amy interrupted Naruto as he was about to say, Naruto has an ability to copy attacks from people he rescues, though he has to train his body to use everything but ninjutsu and genjutsu. Naruto replied, "Thanks Amy, having to answer the same question over and over again I think would be worse than fighting mavericks all day. As for why I am doing it now, I'm really not in shape right now to be carrying people back." Iruka nods as Ken replies, "I wish we could help you more, but I've never been a ninja before and Amy only went to the academy for a year before she was expelled." Naruto replied, "It wouldn't be too bad if I could find someone who could use chakra or was a ninja." "I am a ninja," Iruka declared, "actually, a Chunin instructor at the academy." Naruto paused, turned to face Iruka, and asked, "You're a ninja, would you mind teaching me how to use chakra?" "I could, but you're too old," Iruka said. "You have hardened your chakra coils." With a sly smile, Naruto remarked, "Not exactly. The Sigma virus causes your body to change in order to become stronger. That's why you all had injuries that should have killed you when I saved you. However, I have the same items for different reasons. Unless you were completely destroyed, your body will heal itself from any harm you sustain. The virus uses it as a self-defense mechanism to make sure it survives and that you are performing at your best." Iruka replied, "So you're saying that we all could train to get stronger? Then we are, and thanks to the virus we wouldn't get weaker from not using it." After giving it some thought, Naruto replied, "Yeah, pretty much." "Naruto, is there any way I could help you rescue people?" Iruka asked after a pause. "If you're strong enough to defeat a maverick, then yes," Naruto shrugged, adding, "Slip the extra bracelet you're wearing and bring them back while using your chakras carefully. However, you must be concerned that the more chakra you use, the more the virus will infect you. This means that you will need to return and wait to recover, just as you did when I brought you all here. Before you can go save another person, tell me how to use chakra, please." Iruka remarked, "I have a better idea. I teach Chunin to the Ninja Academy. I could assist you in saving everyone and teach us all how to become stronger so that we could better defend ourselves. That is, if you don't mind doing what I say." "Yeah, I need to get stronger," Naruto said. "The Kunia girl appears to be adjusting to my presence and avoiding my blaster. And I believe there are other people as well that I haven't yet seen. The only reason I was able to save them and bring them back was because I got really lucky and outwitted them because they hadn't seen me before and underestimated me." According to Amy, "Kunai girl, who's that?" On the first day I arrived, a female maverick my age was fighting Ryu with exploding kunai. Naruto remarked, "Ryu almost killed me when I tried to trick both of them back here at the same time, but she seemed to change her opinion of me and started acting warily around me after I defeated him at the last second." With a frown, Iruka remarked, "And you only got me because someone even more skilled defeated me?" "Yeah," Naruto replied. "Then we all need to train." Iruka stated, "The only reason you've saved us thus far is luck. And luck doesn't last long in this world. I'm going to teach you all how to use chakra, teach you the fundamentals of taijutsu as taught at the academy, and attempt to teach you all the 3 basic ninjutsu techniques while you stop saving lives for the next few weeks." Amy replied, "But Iruka, it takes several years to learn that." "It takes us years to teach it because we also want to teach history, strategy, and other subjects," Iruka said. "Everyone, get up now." According to Ryu, "Why should I?" Naruto replied, "Are you going to be a lazy coward for the next 1000 years? Everyone's attention was drawn to this, and Ryu questioned, "What do you mean 1000 years? I don't believe you realize what has happened to you all," Naruto remarked. "When I stated that the virus is causing you all to perform at your best, I meant that your organs, muscles, and blood will all be at their strongest and healthiest. Being totally destroyed is the only way to die forever." Iruka questioned, "How can you be sure about that?" Naruto sighed and then said, "Because the virus is called the Neo-Sigma virus. My grandfather and uncle were alive when the original Sigma virus was created and released onto the world. The world was nearly destroyed. The virus couldn't be destroyed without completely destroying those who were infected with it. Millions of lives were lost. It was thought that everything that was infected with the Sigma virus was destroyed until the man you all call the Six Realm Sage discovered one creature who had survived the purge using the body of the creature. He discovered the secret to using chakra was rediscovered. He used the body as an example to 9 others. Those 9 became what you all know as the Biju. Every adult had wide eyes. Everyone had been infected by the Sigma virus for years, but it was dormant, and some people have activated the Sigma and fallen under it," Naruto said, shaking his head, adding that he had also recreated the Sigma virus in its dormant state when he created the Biju. We believe that the original Sigma virus infected Orochimaru, the Yondaime Mizukage, and perhaps Uchiha Itachi. I don't know how the Sigma virus mutated. It could have simply evolved. Someone might have accidentally discovered it and/or mutated it, or someone might have discovered it and attempted to use it to create a weapon without realizing the true danger it poses. Two survivors of the time the original virus was released on the world, my grandfather and uncle, contacted the Sandaime Hokage and began preparing to help stop the original Sigma from awakening again and destroying the world. I suppose it is no longer a major concern. Our only option is to attempt to protect the world from the Neo-Sigma. All life on Earth will be exterminated if we don't. Ryu replied, I thought you said we would be basically immortal unless we were completely destroyed. Everything, including humans, animals, and plants, is infected, declared Naruto. Plants infected with the virus have developed metal skins. When there are no plants, no new oxygen is produced. I'm not sure or willing to wager that our bodies will be able to adjust in time to prevent us from dying from a lack of oxygen, but even as we speak, the world is gradually accumulating toxins in the air that will eventually become toxic to us. We can begin reclaiming our world gradually if I can get this village on the road to recovery and free up the people I can assist. My grandfather is currently working to figure out how to use the properties of the bracelets we wear on plants and animals. It has taken him 4 years to reach this point, so it will take time. When he does, everyone will need to work quickly to apply the cure he develops, or else we could all perish. Petty rivalries no longer matter, and there is no longer an I or Konoha versus Iwa Nin. We must either coexist or perish together. Astonished, Naruto turned to Iruka and commanded, teach us. Ryu scowled and remarked, if you can't beat them, join them. Amy took a stand and joined Naruto, as did Ken. All right, Iruka said, in order to assist you in unlocking your chakra, we must first work on increasing your physical energy. You should all begin by completing laps around the RZ. I suggest doing 25 laps, followed by 25 jumping jacks, 25 squats, 25 push-ups, and 25 sit-ups. Following that, we will practice the taijutsu katas for half an hour, take a 10-minute break, and then repeat the process, adding 5 to each one up until you reach 100 of each. This is the plan for the next few days. I will show you how to open your chakra once you are able to do that, and then we will start practicing the jutsu. We'll need a few weeks to get in shape, I estimate. Naruto nodded and said, sounds easy. Meanwhile, everyone else paled and said, this is going to be hell. A little more than 4 weeks had passed since the Five's training started when the woman Naruto had saved woke up and was informed of the circumstances. Everyone discovered that her name was Yuri, and despite her background as a civilian dressmaker, she had joined the training to assist. At that time, they had been attacked 4 times by groups of mavericks, but they fled before any of them could be taken. As a result, training was split into quarters, with one person starting at 6 a.m. and working until 10 a.m., then standing guard until noon, then sleeping from noon until 6 p.m., then starting up again until 10 p.m., standing guard until midnight, and then sleeping until 6 the following day. One person would be 2 hours behind the first, another 2 hours behind him, and the last 2 hours after him. In order to allow the Sigma virus to fully wear off, everyone would take a day off. After 2 days they would first complete the standard warm-up exercise before sparring Iruka one at a time for 5 minutes each, after which they would switch to sparring Naruto for 5 minutes each, followed by Ken, Ryu, Amy, Yuri, and finally Iruka. They would then talk about any shortcomings they noticed or felt someone had before performing the warm-up exercise once more as a cool-down exercise. He would then start explaining how to unlock their chakra for 30 minutes, and after everyone was exhausted, they would meditate for 15 minutes with one person on guard, then switch with another, and so on, until everyone had practiced for an hour and stood watch for 15 minutes. They would then unwind for the remainder of the day while the others set up their sleep and guard schedules, so that the same person didn't always have the same rotation. It took 4 days to unlock all of their chakras, and by the time the black metal skin of the Neo-Sigma virus started to slowly form on their bodies, everyone realized what Naruto had been warning them about. It took a few hours for them to fully recover before they tried it again. Iruka scowled as he noticed something strange and said, I think I noticed something about the virus. This caught everyone's attention after the first day of training and rest with Naruto, after everyone had released their chakra. NX questioned, what do you mean? Iruka stated, right now I have the most chakra out of everyone here and use more chakra. Since I have been testing a couple jutsu during my training, I noticed that I also recover at a faster rate than everyone else. With Amy coming in closely behind me, I can only come to 2 conclusions. Then Amy asked, and what is that? Iruka responded, it either means that the more chakra you have the faster you recover, which with everything I know about chakra makes absolutely no sense, or it means the better control you have over your chakra the faster you recover. I think we should test my theory to see if I am right. After giving it some thought, NX asked, How do you want to test your theory? Iruka glanced at Ken and Ryu and said, you both are about even. I need one of you to volunteer to increase your reserves by putting your hand sign in a ram seal and just flaring your chakra. The other one I will teach a basic chakra control exercise to. In about a week we will have a test where you both will flare your chakra till you're both about halfway covered by the virus, and then we will watch to see which one of you recovers faster. If I am right, then this will help us all figure out how to recover faster as well as anyone we rescue. Ryu replied, I'll go for the flaring my chakra. The others, including Naruto, who had been hearing tales of the other people's lives prior to the Sigma virus, snickered when Ken said, of course you would. One of your ancestors must have been a Nari, you lazy ass. However, Naruto kept the majority of his life a secret. Everyone saw Ryu and Ken flare their chakras at the end of the week, and they noticed that Ryu was being covered by the Sigma more quickly than Ken. When a few minutes had passed, Iruka said, okay Ryu, stop now you can. As everyone watched, they noticed that Ken was also getting better more quickly. Iruka remarked, I see, so that's it. It was Naruto who said, what Iruka-sensei? Iruka gave a slight grin and said, you know, you could have been my student if you had lived in Konoha. Anyways, there's an old saying, power is nothing without control. It appears the better your chakra control is, the longer you can go before the Sigma virus takes over. It also appears the better your control is, the faster you would recover as well. So what does that mean for us? Asked Naruto as he approached a building and started to ascend its side. Iruka remarked, well, generally the first step is to teach the leaf floating exercise, but since I don't know if it will work with the leaves that are covered and infected by the Sigma virus, well, tree climbing might not be a good idea either. Oh, I know. What you have to do is this. When he reached the top he stated, what you have to do is send chakra to the bottom of your feet and to stick to the wall. Too much and you blow off, and not enough and you fall off. Ken replied, why don't you have them try the exercise you had me do, Iruka? Iruka replied, well, the chakra resistance exercise I used to teach you control is actually a one-on-one thing. I could teach it to you all one at a time, but the exercise wouldn't help all of you at the same time. This exercise will. Later, once you get your control better, I will teach it to each of you, but then you're going to have to teach others. Anyways, as I was saying, normally if we were using trees I would tell you to get a running start, but since I don't want to do more damage to buildings than has already been done, then I will tell you to start by laying on the ground next to the wall and put your foot on the wall and adjust your chakra until you're sure you stick, and then do the next step and the next. One at a time until you can walk up and down the wall without thinking about it. Learning to control chakras was the next step. Iruka started teaching more advanced taijutsu techniques, such as how to use chakra to strengthen their bodies, along with some strategies in their very first jutsu, the replacement jutsu. After it took another week for everyone to master the tree climbing exercise. When the month was over, Iruka looked at everyone and said, alright, now after seeing everyone's level and skills I am pleased to say that we are ready to begin working on rescuing more people. Ryu, you and Yuri both will stay here and guard the RZ. Naruto, you and Ken will work together and head east, while Amy and I will head west. Do not leave the village. If you can defeat someone, then both of you bring them back and recover. We don't need heroes, we need teamwork. We have a surplus of bracelets right now since we stockpiled all our bracelets and we have 2 each. This will help us get people faster. If you make it to the edge of the village and not find anyone, head north. We will also head north. If we don't find anyone, we will work together to do a sweep of the village back to the RZ. We will then repeat the process until we clear the north half of the village, and then we will repeat the process with the south side. Hopefully by then we will have several more people and we can really get the recovery process going. Everyone agree? As Iruka noticed that everyone was nodding in agreement, she said, then good hunting and good luck I guess. Come on Amy. After glancing at Ken, NX said, ready. Iruka and Amy were leaving, and Ken remarked, man, they got it bad for each other. Huh? NX asked. What do you mean? As he and NX started to leave the RZ, Ken laughed and remarked, they love each other. You do know what love is, right? NX looked at him and said, I know what love means, and I know I love my uncle and grandfather, but before I came here and rescued all of you I had never actually met anyone else in my life. Ken heard something and laughed again, saying, kid, you have a lot to learn. What's that? NX started to glance around when he heard an explosion and saw smoke rising in the air, saying, that's Kanai girl. When Ken noticed the smoke, he said, you sure? They both moved in the direction of the smoke's source. NX replied, yeah, she's the only one I've seen around who uses explosion like that. As Ken said after speaking with an ally, I think we're going to need some help. 3 dogs and a female maverick fighting another female maverick were in front of them. NX pointed to the younger female and muttered, that's Kanai girl. Ken rolled his eyes and replied, I know her from somewhere, but I can't remember where. That other girl, though I'm sure that's Hana Inuzuka and her 3 companions. She was the only Inuzuka in the village who used 3 dogs, the rest only had 1 dog each. NX remarked. So what should we do? Looks like the dogs caught our scent and we might have to fight all 5 of them, Ken remarked with a frown. When the Kanai girl saw that Hana and her friends were distracted by the Maverick, she leapt into the air, crossed her arms over her chest, and then threw them forward, sending more than 200 Kanai flying down on them. When NX saw an opening, he lifted his blaster and shot the Kanai girl, who was falling back toward the ground, with his buster cannon. Before she could recover, NX fired 3 more blasts, striking her in the chest after the first one sent her flying into a building. A furious dog then tried to bite NX's arm but was thwarted by his armor, tackling him to the ground. In order to assist NX, Ken grabbed the dog by the neck and jaw and applied pressure to its body while pulling back as hard as he could. The dog went limp and there was a snap as he gasped for air after attempting to remove the dog from him. NX said, "Thanks, Ken." Ken replied, "No problem, looks like we got lucky 5 in one go." NX reached up and touched the side of his helmet, saying, "Yo, Gramps, you there?" He scowled and remarked, "No, Grandpa doesn't know how to turn animals yet, but that gives me an idea." Dr. Light's voice could be heard saying, "Go ahead, Mega Man." NX replied, "Hey, I got a maverick animal captured, you interested?" Light replied, "Yes, our only sample of the Neo virus we had was from the original specimen your uncle was able to recover 4 years ago. By having another sample I might be able to find out more on the Neo virus. Place your buster cannon on the specimen and I'll teleport it here." When NX touched the dog's body, it vanished in a ray of light. Light replied, "A dog, yes, this will help greatly. Is there anything else, Mega Man?" NX stated, "I miss you, Gramps, and we are working as fast as possible. I've also gotten stronger." "Good luck, Light out," Light said, "I knew you would." After grinning, NX turned to face Ken, who replied, "So we take the 2 girls then?" "You get Hana, I'll get Kanai," NX said, nodding. Ken said, "I wish we could save the dogs right now, and Inuzuka without a dog is like a crime." He nodded, and the 2 men picked up the 2 girls. "We'll save them when we can, come on," NX said while carrying a Kanai girl's clothing. "Looks like someone has his first crush," Ken thought with a sly smile. Ryu and Yuri both arrived and assisted in placing the 2 females on the ground in the RZ Light after Ken and NX returned to the RZ. Ken replied, "So you want to go back and try again?" After glancing at the 2 new Reploids, NX remarked, "I guess are you?" The amused expression that Yuri did not miss grew even larger as Ken said, "Sure, come on kid. There's a world needing saving, you can look after your girlfriend later." NX looked at Ken, blinked behind his helmet, and said, "Huh, girlfriend, what are you talking about?" With an amused expression on her face, Yuri said, "Oh, quit teasing the poor boy, after all, it's only natural that the first female he ever saw would be the one he would fall in love with." Her eyes widened, and she then glanced at the 2 girls, remembering which one NX was holding. After taking off his helmet, NX turned to face the adults with a curious expression on his face and said, "But I'm not in love, am I? I don't know, why would I be in love with the first female I saw? I mean, if you were right, then does that mean I am in love with Amy?" Ken said, "Never mind, come on kid," as he started to approach and take another bracelet from the stack before turning to leave after all the adults in the room face-failed. NX grabbed another bracelet, put his helmet back on, and started to follow Ken. After glancing at the 2 recuperating Reploids, Ryu remarked, "So you think he actually likes that girl over there?" As she approached and took a seat, Yuri remarked, "Who knows, he's a teenage boy, anything's possible." When Ryu and Yuri heard a scraping sound, they both stood up and assumed a defensive position, staring in the direction of the sound and blinking when they noticed Amy and Iruka, who were both partially covered in black metal. With a grunt, Iruka gestured to the cart that he and Amy were pulling and said, "A little help here." When they saw 20 Mavericks who appeared to be younger than 6 years old, Ryu and Yuri both ran over to where the cart was and gasped. Ryu then exclaimed, "How the hell did you both find them?" Amy stated, "They were near the hospital. I think they were infants when they were infected by the virus. Get the extra bracelets, we need to put them on the ones who don't have them before they recover." After rushing to the pile, Yuri snatched up a handful of bracelets and hurried back over, giving them to the others, who promptly started putting one on each child and transferring them from the cart to the ground close to the 2 NX and Ken had rescued. Iruka said, "I'm tired, so Naruto and Ken bring those 2, or did they attack here and you beat them, after all the kids had bracelets?" Ryu replied, "Naruto and Ken did, they left about 10 minutes before you got here." That's Hana Inuzuka. I've worked with her a couple of times on missions. I know her name. Her dad owns a weapon shop. What is her name? It's on the tip of my tongue. Iruka nodded and blinked, as if he was thinking. Everyone turned and gasped when they saw NX carrying Ken's body. Yuri said, "Ken?" in a worried voice as she ran over and noticed a hole in Ken's chest. She then turned to face NX and asked, "What happened? Is he going to be okay?" before setting Ken down on the ground. Naruto collapsed on the ground and said, "We were ambushed by the guy who originally took out Iruka. He appeared from behind and his arm was covered in lightning, and by the time I saw him he had already plunged his arm through Ken's chest. He'll live, but that guy is way too powerful for us to fight right now. Even with the attack I copied off Kanai Girl, it didn't even touch him. He was too fast for my blaster to hit. He would have probably put a hole through my chest had he not been attacked by another maverick who lured him away when he dropped his armor." "Naruto, your hand!" exclaimed Iruka, gasping. After examining his black metal-covered hand, Naruto remarked, "It seems I'm not as immune to the Sigma virus as we originally thought." "Why did you believe that you were immune to it though? I mean, what is so different about you that made you believe that you were immune?" Iruka said, casting a worried glance at Naruto's hand. "I told you all that this isn't the first time the Sigma virus infected the world. The last time the world didn't have the chance that it has now. I told you that my uncle and my grandfather were both alive during that time. What I didn't tell you was that my father was also from that time," Naruto said after closing his eyes and collapsing back to the ground. Iruka said, "But that's not possible, your father," as everyone's eyes widened. Naruto intervened and stated, "My father was originally known as Mega Man. This armor I wear was his originally. This armor was modified to protect him from the Sigma virus. When the Sigma virus was released on the world, my father and my uncle were both maverick hunters. At that time mavericks were hunted down and destroyed completely." Ryu said, "You mean?" Yuri and Amy gasped, nodding. Naruto continues, "Millions of mavericks were eradicated during that time to save the world. It was believed that all of them were destroyed until a couple of hundred years ago when the body of a maverick was found by a man the world knows as the Six Realms Sage. The world sees him as a great man, but history is often wrote by the victor. The sage used the body of the maverick he found and created the 9 bijus and used them to help him unite 6 lands who were ran by warlords at the time. By ending the war between the 6 lands he was saw as a man who brought peace." Iruka stated, "So he was really a bringer of peace." Naruto stated, "And destruction." The sage didn't understand what he truly did. When he created the Biju, he also figured out how to use chakra because he accidentally shocked himself with the body of the original Maverick. He was trying to use the energy from the Maverick to power the Biju. Since that shock unlocked his chakra, he did the same thing to others using his chakra to unlock other people's chakra, which also passed the Sigma virus to everyone. That is why when it became active it was so quick to spread." Amy replied, "But that doesn't explain why you thought you were immune." Naruto clenched his teeth and said, "I won't tell how, but my father was turned into a child and had his memory of the past sealed away so he could observe the world to help track the level of containment of the Sigma virus. From what my grandfather told me, he had been doing it several times over the years now. This meant that my father wasn't infected by the Sigma virus as he had never been infected by it originally. That was part of the reason I was immune to it." Ryu responded, "Because your dad wasn't infected you thought you were immune." Naruto replied, "No, that was only part of it. I said my mother was like everyone else except my father. That made me sort of a hybrid, add in the fact that I had came into contact with the original Sigma virus from the Kyuubi the day I was born but had it extracted from me right after that by my grandfather and uncle. By this happening my body adapted and I became completely immune to the original Sigma virus. We tested it several times over the years since then just to make sure. When the Neo-Sigma virus first appeared, my uncle captured a Maverick and brought him to our lab. Unfortunately, he became a Maverick himself and attacked us. I was also injured severely. While only my grandfather was still quarantined for 4 years, I was in a coma while my grandfather worked on healing me and working on a way to stop the Sigma virus." Naruto got up and started walking back and forward as he said, "It doesn't make any sense. I'm immune to the original virus. I'm wearing my father's armor that was made to protect him from the virus. My father did not contain the Sigma virus, and even though my mother had the original Sigma dormant, I'm immune to it. So how did I become infected with the Neo-Sigma? It doesn't make any sense." Yuri replied, "What is different exactly from the Sigma and the Neo-Sigma?" Naruto stated, "The only real differences I have found is the Neo adapted to survive and alters its host to survive, where the original only cared about survival of the strongest and destruction of those weaker than its host. That is the only real difference I have found so far, but I only had about 2 days before I first arrived here to catch up on everything that happened over the 4 years I was injured, and I don't know what else my grandfather and uncle has discovered." Ryu replied, "I thought you said your uncle was turned into a Maverick. Was he able to be saved like we are, and does that mean he's out there somewhere?" As his hand sank into the cannon and a kunai erupted, piercing a rat and causing it to explode. Naruto looked down and said, "No, my uncle's been linked to a computer so he can help my grandfather, but he's still infected and sealed away, damn it." With his hand on the rat that vanished in a ray of light, Naruto walked over, tapped the side of his helmet, and said, "Gramps, I got another sample for you, transmit when ready." Iruka blinked after he left and asked, "Is that the attack you copied off that girl?" Iruka asked, "How exactly do you copy the attack?" as Naruto nodded. Naruto stated, "When I hit a maverick and have them in a position where I can touch them for about 5 seconds, my armor absorbs the energy left over from the attack in their body and it carries the info on their attack that I can copy." Squinting, Iruka uttered, "I think I know how you might have been infected." With a generally perplexed tone, Naruto turned to face Iruka and inquired, "How?" Iruka replied, "The virus is chakra-based from what you told us. What if when you copy the Maverick's attack you are also copying the Neo Sigma virus? That's why it's only on your hands so far." Looking down, Naruto remarked, "It's possible. That means I can't copy any more attacks unless I want to infect myself more." Yuri replied, "You're already infected. It will spread through your body the more you use chakra. Now you're just like us now." Naruto took a breath and said, "I guess you're right, but that means I'm not going to do what I had originally planned." "What do you mean? What did you have planned?" inquired Iruka. Naruto said, "We need to get more people freed. I was thinking after we got about 25 people, I could take 5 with me to a new location like a neighboring town and start the process all over again. Then I would repeat the process again and again, spreading out to every village so we can cover more ground and take out more quickly, using the capsules in each village to coordinate with each other." "That's a good idea, Naruto. Even infected it could work," Iruka remarked with a frown. Everyone turned to watch Ryu as he closed his eyes and said, "But you're not going to be the one to do it." As Yuri put it, "What do you mean?" Ryu glanced around and said, "I know all of you think of me as weak, lazy, a coward. In fact, I prefer to be considered one of those compared to the truth." Iruka questioned, "What truth?" When Ryu saw everyone's wide-eyed reaction to his questioning gaze, he looked down at his hands and remarked, "I didn't look this young originally. In fact, I'm the same age as Hiruzen the Sandaime Hokage." Ryu turned to Konoha and said, "Konoha is a ninja village. Unlike neighboring village, the people here will be harder to take out. Naruto, you are our best chance to save Konoha. Is there any way I can go in your place?" Naruto remarked, "But why would you do that?" "I thought that," as everyone gasped. As he turned to face the Hokage monument, Ryu interrupted him, saying, "You thought exactly what I wanted you to think, boy. This entire time I have been observing you so that I could gain as much information on you and this virus so that I can correct the mistake I made." "What are you talking about?" asked Iruka. After giving Iruka a quick glance, Ryu declared, "My real name is not Ryu, it is Danzo Shimura." Everyone's eyes widened, including Iruka's, but Naruto and Iruka exclaimed, "Elder Sama." Everyone's eyes widened once more when the now-named Danzo said, "Do not show me respect because I do not deserve it. It is my fault all this has happened." In response, Naruto asked, "What do you mean?" Danzo stated, "I was the leader of a secret black ops unit known as Root. Hiruzen and I did not always see eye to eye, but we both believe in protecting Konoha. I thought that he was a weak fool who believed in ruling through peace and diplomacy, while I believed in power and control. Because I did not trust Hiruzen, I had his office bugged so I could monitor him and find out what he was up to. When your uncle came to Konoha, he was here for nearly 3 days. I had the meeting with him recorded and he informed Hiruzen about you being there as well as the origins of the Sigma virus and other things. I ordered some of my men to begin research into using the info he gave to possibly enhance our men to give Konoha more strength or to create a weapon. The first victims that was taken to the hospital were in fact members of my Root Theer experimentation blew up in Theer face and infected them, which spread to everyone who came in contact with them, and so on and so forth." Naruto replied, "But if what you're saying is true, why couldn't I get more from you then? Basic info, why not some super cool jutsu? I think this is because of this. While this seal is active, most of my abilities that could be learned by enemy ninja who studied my body are sealed away. I suspect this is why I was so weak where you were able to defeat me," Danzo said, sticking out his tongue to show everyone a seal on it. Iruka stopped Amy from attacking Danzo after she punched him in the face and yelled, "YOU." Danzo sighed, "I never meant for this to happen, which is why I want to help fix this. I'm a lot more powerful than all of you and I am more skilled than you. You on the other hand, Naruto, are both weak and inexperienced. The only reason you got Iruka was because someone stronger than you took him out. The rest of the people here are civilians. You need to stay here and help protect the others and train until you get strong enough to take out stronger mavericks, as well as work with your grandfather to save our world. I'm a fighter. Let me regain my honor, please." Iruka replied, Why should we trust you? Your thirst for power has destroyed our world and now you want us to. When Naruto uttered the words, Enough, everyone turned to face him. Looking at Danzo for a few minutes, Naruto remarked, Danzo Shimura was a power-hungry man who created a monster that destroyed the world. Naruto reached up and touched Danzo's helmet as he bowed his head, saying, Grandpa, you there? They heard Light say, Go ahead, Mega Man. Naruto replied, How long would it take for you to build another capsule? As they all stared at Naruto in disbelief, Light questioned, A few hours. Why? Naruto turned to Danzo and said, We recently found out a man by the name of Danzo Shimaru tried to turn the Sigma virus into a weapon, which is the cause of all this. It appears though that Danzo died by his own weapon. Light said, I see. While I am glad we have solved the mystery of the outbreak of the Sigma virus, I don't see why you would be contacting me to inquire about building another capsule. The people who were observing Naruto exchanged quick glances with one another. Naruto stated, Ryu was the one who discovered the truth about the outbreak. He has volunteered to go to another location to start the recovery process again. I have decided to honor his request. Light replied, Are you sure? I mean, he will be without the protection he has now. He will have to work hard to set up a new RZ and rescue people. According to Danzo, I'm sure, Light replied. Well, in that case, if you are sure, then I will begin building one for you. I will transport you down along with a new regeneration ball and a new capsule to what was known as T Country. Are you familiar with that area? Yes, Danzo replied. Light replied, Very well, I'll begin at once. Say any goodbyes between now and then. Light out. Why did you do that? You could have told the truth, Danzo said, glancing at Naruto. Naruto stated, My grandfather was once a great inventor. He created many things to help the lives of other people. But several of his inventions were used for evil that caused untold pain and suffering for countless victims. There was a time where both my uncle and father were both considered monsters and criminals who did what they thought had to be done in order to save as many lives as possible. Even when my father was a Konoha ninja, he killed thousands of Nins, and by them he is seen as a monster, and by the people here a hero. It is the part of us that is human that makes mistakes, but it is also this human side that gives us our greatest strength. In my eyes, Danzo is dead. You are Ryu. I am giving you the chance others gave my family when people thought of them as monsters. Can you do the same as them and prove you are not? You are wiser than I, and I hope someday I can prove you. Faith in me is not misplaced in not just your eyes but theirs as well, Danzo said, grinning slightly before bending down and bowing to Naruto. With a nod, Naruto comments, Good hunting and luck to you as well, Ryu. Danzo replied, My name is Ryu and I am now and forever in your debt, Naruto-sama. With a frown, Iruka asked, Are you sure about this, Naruto? Naruto stated, There is no more I in this world, Iruka. We have to work together or die together. We each have made mistakes we have regretted. If I didn't give him a chance to redeem himself, then what right do I have to ask forgiveness for my own mistakes? And what mistake did you make? Inquired Amy. Naruto looked at her and said, I had two choices when I recovered from my injuries. One was to come here and save all of you like I have been doing. The other choice I could have made was stay and help my grandfather work on finding a different way than this to save everyone. Iruka replied, And I'm for one glad you decided to go with this option. Naruto stated, Even though there is a chance you will all die now from toxins in the air in a few years. None of you would have died if I had stayed to help my grandfather. I could have chose to stay and worked on the problem of saving the plants first before the humans, but instead I chose to save the human life first. And now you all face the burden of actually being aware you might die if my grandfather doesn't find a way to save the plants. The same grandfather who is going to have to be building capsules and regeneration balls, and who knows what else we will need along the way, taking his time and resources away from the most important thing right now. There's no guarantee that we would have found a cure if I chose to help him instead of you, but it was guaranteed you all wouldn't have had to live with the knowledge you will all drown in toxins in a few years. If he doesn't, I have to live with that choice. Yuri replied, Then why don't you go back and help him now? I mean, we can continue what you started. Naruto stopped and said, I'm contaminated now. I can't go back. The price I paid to come here to save you was losing the ability to ever physically touch my grandfather or uncle again until either we save the world or we all are about to die. Everyone at last realized the price of their freedom at that point. After Ryu left the following day, Amy, Yuri, and Iruka took care of the wounded and infected victims while Naruto went exploring the village in search of Mavericks. While walking through the town, he thought, Since I'm now at risk of being infected, I'm going to have to figure out the best way to continue to rescue Mavericks with the least chance of becoming a Maverick. Ryu gone now, I hope that I made the right choice with him, but I did get to talk to him after everyone went to sleep. The entrance to his underground base should be in this area. If I can find the lab where his men were working on the Sigma virus, I might be able to find something that could help us. After an hour of searching, Naruto thought, "Hello, what have we here?" as he peered inside one of the last buildings in the neighborhood Ryu had described to him. Naruto thought, "This isn't what Ryu told me was his base's location, this is something else." As he walked over to a wall crack and ran his hand over a gash in the wall, he also noticed a crowbar on the floor of the warehouse he was in. After breaking through the wall with the crowbar, Naruto saw a flight of stairs leading below ground and reflected, might as well, maybe this is another entrance into Ryu base." Naruto quickly found himself in a network of underground tunnels after descending the stairs. "I don't think this is Ryu base, but what is it?" was Naruto's thought as he investigated the tunnels. Naruto was exploring the tunnels for an hour when he saw something unexpected and thought, "You have got to be kidding me." When Naruto got back to the RZ, he noticed that all of the kids were staring at the capsule booth, which was showing an educational show he had watched as a kid. Additionally, he noticed the two that he and Ken had saved leaning against a wall and surveying their surroundings. Naruto's return prompted Iruka to remark, "Couldn't find anyone today, Naruto." "Actually, I've got several hundred people I can save real quick and that's the problem," Naruto said, turning to face Iruka. "What's the problem?" inquired Amy just as Naruto opened his mouth to speak. Hana got up and asked, "Who is this Iruka?" Iruka replied, Hana, this is Naruto, he's the one who we were telling you about Naruto. This is Hana Inuzuka and that girl over there is Tenten." Naruto replied, "Nice to meet you, so what's up with the kids?" Yuri responded, "I believe we were right about them being infants when they were infected, they don't understand how to communicate in our language or how to understand us. Luckily your grandfather had thought of this problem ahead of time in case we all lost the ability to speak being turned into mavericks." Hana remarked, "You're the one who beat me, correct?" as Naruto nodded. Hana remarked, "My companions were there 3 dogs with me when you fought me?" as Naruto nodded. Iruka said, "The Inuzuka clan, of which Hana here is a member, are linked to their companions almost like sibling," as Naruto looked at her. Naruto looked at him and said, "All 3 of your dogs are alive. 2 of them are still out there in the village and the 3rd is currently with my grandfather who is trying to find a way to reverse the virus effects on them." In an attempt to shift the conversation, Iruka said, "So if you found a way to rescue that many people quickly, what are you waiting for?" as Hana scowled. Naruto took a deep breath and pondered what to say. "I don't know how many people lived in Konoha before the Sigma virus activated, but it appears that someone had decided that kicking people out wasn't working and tried to quarantine them. Most likely since the Sigma virus spread so quickly, there's some kind of underground chamber with hundreds of people laying everywhere, even stacked on top of each other like logs. Each one of them has one of these on their chest," as he raised an object. Hana remarked, "I recognize that it's a medical stasis seals," after Iruka had examined it. "What does it do?" Naruto asked, glancing at her. "Please Hana, this is important. The faster we can save people, the better chance we have to save the world," Iruka said as Hana bit her lip. Hana looked at her watch and said, "I don't trust people who I can't see the face of. Iruka, especially someone who smells like a fox." With a sigh, Naruto changed from his armor to more casual attire and uttered the words, "Better." Hana replied, "What's the fox scent I smell on you?" Naruto replied, "Kyuubi, I was exposed to Kyuubi chakra the day I was born and absorbed some of its chakra, which caused these marks to appear on my face." Happy. Hana puckered up and said, "Those seals are designed to put a person in a coma so they can't re-injure themselves by moving, usually after major surgery." Naruto replied, "I see. In your opinion, in the situation Konoha was in when the Sigma virus was released, do you think this seal would have been placed on prisoners?" According to Hana, "No, why would you ask that?" Naruto stated, "Because the rooms where the people I found were it is just down from what appears to be a prison area where several mavericks are locked away behind bars. I didn't want to take the risk that if we rescued those with these seals on they would attack us since we are still so short on hands." Iruka replied, "That's a valid point and one we have to consider. Hana, if we moved those people with these tags on them, would that wake them up?" Hana replied, "No, as long as those tags are on them then they will stay in status. Why?" Iruka replied, "Because if we put bracelets on them and then bring them here, then the regeneration zone will increase in size by each person we bring here." Naruto has a point about taking precaution with those people just in case they are prisoners. Hana looked at him and said, "You're right, but maybe you and I should see these people, Iruka, and see if we recognize them. Maybe we are worrying about them for no reason." "You're a doctor, aren't you?" said Naruto. Hana replied, "Vet, but I can help humans. How did you know?" Naruto stated, "Anyone who's taken an oath to do no harm should be able to see someone who's also taken that oath by their actions. Can you show us where these people are, Naruto, so we can figure out what to do?" Iruka asked as Hana nodded. "Sure." Just, said Naruto. Can I come with you? A female voice asked. When Hana, Iruka, and Naruto turned to face the girl Tenten, Naruto retorted, no. Tenten placed her hands on her hips and uttered the words, why not? Naruto replied, because you need to stay here and train to get stronger before starting to help others. Even I had to take some time to get stronger to help others. Once you can get stronger and understand the limits we are faced with, then you can. Tenten questioned, who made you boss? Naruto is the expert here. Tenten, but he's right, it's too easy to get turned back into a maverick. Just stay here and train like we were doing earlier, and maybe in a week or two you can start helping some, Naruto said, glancing at Iruka, who appeared sheepish. Tenten looked at Naruto and scowled, saying, fine Iruka-sensei, but this isn't over. I'm not a helpless little girl, I can help. Is that glare supposed to mean something to me, mouse? Asked Naruto, raising an eyebrow. Tenten's eyes widened when she realized Naruto was referring to her hair, and she lunged at him, but Hana stopped her with the words, stop it Tenten. Hana held Tenten under her arms as she attempted to kick Naruto, who appeared unsure and remarked, what is she mad about? Her hair resembles a cute little mouse. Tenten halted his stumbling and clarified, you think I look cute? Naruto replied, I guess you're the cutest looking girl my age I ever seen. Iruka asked Tenten, exactly how many girls your age have you met, Naruto? As her cheek turned red with blush. As he pointed to Tenten, whose eyes widened and her cheeks turned redder, this time in rage, before she lunged at Naruto because Hana had released her, Naruto said, just her. As Naruto's tackle sent both falling backwards, Tenten's hands wrapped around her neck. As they watched Naruto and Tenten roll around on the ground, with Naruto attempting to get Tenten off him and Tenten attempting to choke him to death, Hana remarked, smooth Iruka, you just had to point out the obvious and get her started again. Iruka slapped his head. Hana replied, kiss and make up already, this fighting isn't helping. When he rolled Tenten onto her back, Naruto rushed forward and planted a kiss on her lips without realizing that Hana's words were merely a saying. Tenten stopped struggling, and everyone else watching the two went wide-eyed. After Tenten stopped struggling, Naruto withdrew the kiss and asked, so are you sorry for attacking me now? Hana and Iruka both slapped their heads as Tenten's eyes widened and he lunged at Naruto once more, yelling that he should be the one to apologize. Hana shook her head and followed Iruka and Naruto as they fled after Amy and Yuri both grabbed the struggling Tenten away from Naruto. Naruto asked, why is she so angry at me? After they had left the RZ. Hana covered Iruka's mouth as he opened it, saying, you'll understand someday. Iruka thought, yeah right. The world will end the day a man comprehends a woman's mind. Iruka whistled and remarked, looks like there's about 200 people here, as Naruto, Hana, and Iruka arrived at the spot Naruto had found. Behind them, a woman's voice said, 216 actually. A woman with blonde hair, brown eyes, and enormous breasts who appeared to be about 22 years old was standing there when Naruto and the others turned around. Iruka and Hana both exclaimed, Tsunade-sama. With a perplexed expression, Naruto asked, who? The granddaughter of the Shodem Hokage of Konoha, Tsunade Senju. Iruka said she is a legendary Sannin from Konoha. With a contemplative expression, Naruto uttered, it doesn't sound familiar, I apologize, but how are you immune to the Neo-Sigma virus? You three seem to know who I am, so who are you and how are you not affected by this disease? Tsunade said, glancing at the three while ignoring Naruto's question. My name is Iruka Amino, and I was an instructor at the Chunin Academy here at Konoha. Iruka stated, this is Naruto, and this is Hana Inuzuka, he is the Yondaime's son, and it was he who helped us revert to our maverick identity. Tsunade asked, looking perplexed, mavericks? Tsunade-sama is the term used to describe people who are fully infected with the Sigma virus. According to Hana on this, Naruto and his grandfather are the authorities. We discovered that Danzo was the true source of this virus. With a scowl on her face, Tsunade said, you still haven't told us how you are not a maverick. Perhaps we can share notes, Tsunade said, glancing at Naruto. You say you can cure this, she said, gesturing to the individuals crammed into the room. Naruto replied, they are not prisoners like those others upstairs, are they? No, Tsunade said in an attempt to find a way to undo this, I've been catching them and bringing them down here to test them. Naruto replied, in that case let's start moving them to the RZ. RZ? Tsunade inquired. We refer to it as the regeneration zone. Iruka stated the other rescued individuals are located at our base of operations, which also serves as our conduit to Dr. Light, Naruto's grandfather, who is working to get us the supplies we need to rescue people while also figuring out how to undo the effects of the Neo-Sigma virus on plants and animals so that they can be cured. After biting her lip, Tsunade asked, "How do you transport people?" "Carry them," said Naruto, looking perplexed. He said, "How else would we move them?" With a playful glance at Naruto, Tsunade said, "I'll show you how, Gaki." The sound of 1,000 birds was heard a few hours later as Naruto was following Hana, Iruka, and a laughing Tsunade who had a big scroll strapped across her back. Then, he felt a sharp pain as he looked down at his chest and saw blood dripping from it, covering a hand that had been struck by lightning. Before everything around Naruto turned black, he heard his name being screamed. Naruto opened his eyes gradually. He blinked a few times and glanced to his left, where he saw a wall. He then turned his head to his right, where he groaned and saw a dozen people moving about. "Naruto, you're up," said a female voice. Tenten was standing there when Naruto turned to face the voice, and he asked her name. Tenten approached him, knelt next to him, and asked, "How are you feeling?" "Furious," Naruto uttered. "Tired. What happened?" Tenten stated, "You were killed by a maverick. We weren't sure if you were going to make it." With his lips pursed, Naruto uttered, "I remember feeling a pain in my chest and seeing a blood-covered hand that had lightning coming off it." Tenten replied, "Yes, he escaped after sitting up." Naruto asked, "How long was I out?" 3 days, Tenten said. "We were unsure if you would make it. Because of this, everyone else appears to recover in half that amount of time. Probably due to my innate resistance to the original virus." Naruto remarked, "What has been happening during my absence?" Tenten stated, "As the most seasoned and esteemed ninja, Tsunade-sama has assumed leadership of the situation here. She has been exchanging information with your grandfather on a regular basis. Although we haven't yet given bracelets to everyone she had locked away, we have been doing so." Tenten stopped Naruto's attempt to stand up by placing a hand on his shoulder and saying, "You should not move until Tsunade-sama has examined you. While I go get her, stay here." "All right," Naruto said. Biting his lip, Tenten got to his feet and hurried away. Ken remarked, "Your girlfriend said you were awake," as Yuri, Ken, and Amy approached Naruto a short while later. "Naruto, how are you feeling?" "A little tired," Naruto remarked. "How are all three of you doing?" "It's better that you're awake now," Amy said with a smile. "We had doubts that you would make it. Compared to everyone else, you weren't healing as much." "That's what Tenten told me," Naruto said. "What's been going on while I was away?" "I'll explain in a few moments, Gaki." Tsunade's voice could be heard saying, "Let me check you out first," she said as she approached Tenten and a woman with black hair trailing behind. Naruto asked, looking perplexed, "What are you doing?" as Tsunade approached him and ran her green glowed hand over his body. Tsunade replied, "Checking you out. Seems that you are fully healed, but you need to get something to eat and rest for another day." Naruto nods, gets to his feet, and asks, "Where is my armor?" after realizing it's gone. Tsunade replied, "Your grandfather had me send it back to him to repair." "So I hear you've taken charge here?" asked Naruto, nodding. Tsunade went on to say, "As the most senior ninja in the village that is free of the virus at this time, everyone wanted me to take over." After Naruto looked at the black-haired woman, Tsunade remarked, "This is my apprentice Shizune." Naruto nodded his head in her direction and said, "Nice to meet you." Tsunade replied, "Your grandfather wants to talk with you. Once you feel you can move to the capsule." "Then I better get going," Naruto said. "In order to resume maverick hunting, I must retrieve my armor." "Not yet," Tsunade said, placing her hand on Naruto's shoulder. "I need to talk to you about something first. Would everyone mind granting us some privacy, with the exception of Shizune, who stays as well?" The other people there exchanged glances before leaving. "First, you should know that I'm your closest living relative on your mother's side," Tsunade said after everyone had left except for Shizune, Naruto, and herself. "Even though we live far apart, we are still related, even though I am aware that we do not know one another." Naruto replied, "It's nice to meet you, cousin, but why are you telling me this?" With a sigh, Tsunade stated, "We discovered that a family heirloom that belonged to my grandfather is the reason I am not affected by the virus like everyone else is. While I'm currently wearing a bracelet, your grandfather was able to begin curing your Uncle Zero with the help of this jewel." "That's right, your uncle will be able to join us soon," Tsunade said with a smile as Naruto's eyes widened and he took on a hopeful expression. "Your grandfather has asked me to help you get stronger because he will be joining us. You won't be hunting mavericks for a while as a result." Naruto replied, "That's fine and I understand and agree, especially after how easily I was killed. Since the RZ now covers half of the village and we have more people who can help secure it," Tsunade stated, "I am going to start planning things to get our people trained up to the point where they can defend the village while those with more skills go out and start working on other areas. As far as I can tell, until recently, you were brought up more as a scientist than a fighter." Tsunade remarked, "That's good," as Naruto nodded. "Shizune and you will be in charge of the Konoha Research Division in addition to 6 hours of training. You will collaborate with her for 6 hours to gather and exchange information about the virus. You have an hour to prepare and eat before training, an hour to rest after training before beginning your research responsibilities, and 10 hours to unwind and rest after your duties until further notice. This is your schedule." Biting his lip, Naruto remarked, "Excellent, I get it. We must begin efforts to save both plants and animals." "Good," Tsunade said with a smile. "I'm relieved I don't have to give explanations." "Who will be training me?" Naruto asked, glancing at Tsunade. "It depends on who I have available to teach you," Tsunade said. "Until we locate my former sensei and have him take over, I'll be contributing to the research whenever I can." "How many people have we saved so far?" asked Naruto, surveying the area. Tsunade responded, "Here in Konoha we have saved 240 so far and Danzo." She was interrupted by Naruto, who said, "Ryu." After giving him a brief glare, Tsunade said, "I disagree with your choice regarding him, but at this time, there is nothing we can do about it. Dan's. Ryu has already saved 12 lives in T-Country." Naruto was asking, "When are you planning to send others to start new RZs?" "I'm not, at least not yet," Tsunade stated. "We must first secure the village. Until we secure ourselves here, we cannot weaken ourselves by sending others out." Naruto opened his mouth to speak, then stopped when he noticed her glaring at him. Naruto sighed and remarked, "Excellent, when should we begin?" "Tomorrow," said Tsunade. "Before you visit with your friends, go grab a bite to eat and chat with your grandfather. We begin your training with Shizune, who is your first sensei, here tomorrow." As Naruto put it, "All right." Naruto tensed for a second as Tsunade pulled him into an embrace, but then he relaxed, and Tsunade released him, saying, "Go on, get going. I'm sure your friends are waiting for you, and we have time to chat later." With a smile, Naruto said, "Thank you, but I must ask why you are treating me so well when we don't know one another despite the fact that we are cousins." Following a brief moment of sadness, Tsunade remarked, "You remind me of my little brother. He died years ago. Go on. Go see your grandfather and your friends." Naruto gives a nod and rushes off Konoha, the leaf-hidden village, 1 year after Tsunade assumed power. Following their rescue from the Neo-Sigma virus, the people of Konoha had seen significant changes in their lives. The village itself was largely restored to avoid looking like a war zone, and the original walls surrounding the village were replaced with Sigma walls, making Konoha the largest regeneration zone, RZ, on the planet, with 30 more RZs being established. The top research team of Naruto and Shizune's research division came up with the idea for Sigma walls. Infected with the Neo-Sigma virus and infused with chakra, the walls of Sigma were covered in the same metal skin that shielded Mavericks, allowing the walls to mend themselves when they were damaged. Every wall could be constructed in a unique 20 by 20 mold, which would only take an hour to remove and store in scrolls before being transported to its final location. The link portals, another creation of the research department, allowed for quick travel between Konoha and each of the other RZs, each of which had Sigma walls erected around it to protect the populace from renegade Mavericks. Tsunade remarked, "It's hard to believe all we have achieved in the last year," as she gazed over the village of Konoha from the Hokage office in the new Hokage Tower. "Konoha is very different from the village I grew up in. Naruto, you are primarily responsible for those changes." Naruto appeared in front of the Hokage desk and replied, "No, it was a team effort. Konoha is now starting to become like the ancient cities I saw in my grandfather's memory archives, with giant skyscrapers holding hundreds of people in each, except instead of metal, the walls of Konoha's buildings are now the Sigma walls, and every building that is being created is only 3 walls long by 3 walls wide and 3 walls tall, except this building that is 5 walls tall, and the hospital, which is also 5 walls tall and wide, where captured Mavericks are taken to be restored." "Yes," Tsunade said, glancing at the hospital. "There is less need for doctors in the actual village now that the Neo-Sigma virus, or NSV, is circulating through our bodies." Tsunade sighed as she turned to face Naruto and asked, "Is it effective? Does the plant remedy work?" Naruto stated, "Every test we have been able to run showed it does work, though it is a slow process." With a glance back at the village, Tsunade asked, "How many can be made a day?" "We currently have 20 machines that can produce them at a rate of 1 per hour. Naruto stated, "We are awaiting your approval and currently have 1,000 stocked up." Naruto said, "You know this is the only way," as Tsunade turned to face him again before heading to her desk and taking a seat. "It must be completed." After giving Naruto a quick glance, Tsunade said, "Do it." After nodding and making his way to the door, Tsunade uttered the words, "Naruto, please be careful." After stopping, Naruto turned to face Tsunade and grinned before nodding and walking out of the room. Tenten was sitting on a bench near the entrance when Naruto emerged from the Hokage tower. She got up, approached Naruto, and said, "Well." According to Naruto, she agreed. Tenten made the statement, "I'm coming with you. I did not join your training schedule or join your research team just to sit back and do nothing or stay protected while you go out and try to save the world," Tenten said, glaring at Naruto as his eyes widened and he opened his mouth to speak as she raised her left hand. A red bracelet she was wearing abruptly changed into a buster cannon. "You need my help. Your grandfather agrees with me," she said. With a narrowed gaze, Naruto asked, "When did you get that?" "A girl got to have her secrets," Tenten said. "You put those fangirls in the hospital, aren't you?" Naruto asked, glancing around. With a sly smile, Tenten said, "Maybe," as Naruto put it. "Why did you attack them?" Tenten remarked, "They advised me to avoid you. They told me to avoid you because they wanted you for themselves, because they knew you're Tsunade's cousin, the Yondaime son, and the person who started saving everyone that offended me." "Why?" asked Naruto, looking perplexed. "I mean, listen to me, Naruto," Tenten said, covering his mouth once more. "I like you. Yes, you are socially stunted because you don't interact with people your own age very often and you talk without considering what you're saying, but when you do relax, you're also a funny and kind person. I enjoy hanging out with you, and I can see us being together for a long time." Moments after Tenten pushed her hand away and uttered the words, "I don't really understand relationships," Naruto bit his lip in contemplation. "I enjoy spending time with you, and it makes me feel good to do something that makes you smile or laugh. Does this imply that you are my girlfriend? I've spent a lot of time trying to get stronger and figure out how to help everyone." Naruto's eyes widened as Tenten smirked and pulled him into a kiss, then closed them and drew her in. After a few seconds, Tenten withdrew the kiss and said, "Yes, I am your girlfriend, and that is how a kiss should feel. Don't kiss me the way you did when we first met." With a silly smile, Naruto remarked, "I'll have to practice to make up for my previous failure." "A lot of practice, come on," Tenten said. "We have a world to save," she said, taking hold of his hand and dragging him along the road as she started to run and he followed. Tenten said, "Get your gear and I'll get mine." As they arrived at the apartment complex where they resided, "We will then get together here and go to the location where the taps are kept." They both head to their separate apartments after Naruto nods. When Naruto finished getting dressed, he opened his door to leave his apartment, only to be surprised when Tenten pulled him into another kiss. Naruto put on his Mega Man armor and checked his left hip, where his saber hilt was a gift from his Uncle Zero. After they parted ways, Naruto recognized Tenten's red armor and remarked, "That's Proto Man's armor." "It was," Tenten said. "When I informed your grandfather that I would be joining you, he had it sent to me in addition. Your Uncle Zero gave me a saber similar to the one he gave you for your birthday." Tenten noticed Naruto's bewildered expression and remarked, "Your uncle discovered that I like you and confronted me about my feelings. He said he admired my resolve when I told him I would do everything in my power to support and be with you." After giving it some thought, Naruto remarked, "I see. Well, let's go get the taps." After Tenten took his hand, they left the apartment complex and made their way to the warehouse where the taps were kept. Shizune was holding a clipboard when they walked in. She looked up to see them holding hands, and her eyes widened. She grinned and asked, "Is there anything you both want to tell me?" According to Tenten, "We're together." After a moment of bewilderment, Naruto glanced between Tenten and Shizune before shrugging and stating, "Tsunade approved." "I see you in armor. Also, are you planning on going with Naruto to assist him?" Tenten? Shizune asked, nodding her head while maintaining her smile. Tenten replied, "Yes, my armor has a buster cannon so I can help install the taps." "Can't you call them by their real name?" Shizune scowled. Naruto explained, "They are designed to tap into a tree like the taps that were used to take sap from trees, but instead of draining the trees they drain the nanites inside the tree and convert them into nanites that have been cured of the Sigma virus before re-injecting them into the trees." Taking a deep breath, Shizune exclaimed, "All right, taps it is." Naruto stated, "Every tree inside the village walls has already been tapped, so we are going to start with the trees outside the village walls." Shizune stated, "I really wish someone else could do this, but the Sigma metal on the trees make it impossible for anything but the most destructive jutsu to damage them enough to insert the taps. Your buster cannons can easily fire them into a tree. It's going to take years to tap enough trees to make a difference." Naruto replied, "Not necessarily. Gramps has been looking at finding some way to repeat the process we are doing with the trees with the oceans and rivers. He thinks he can create an orb that can float in the water and reverse the Sigma virus on the algae in the water, but that process will take time. Tapping the trees will buy us time." Tenten replied, "Since you want to find some other way to help deliver the taps, why not work on that next?" Shizune nodded her head. We are still trying to find some way to save animals, plus we need to find some way to convert non-tree plants to normal so we can begin farming again. Dr. Light says he's got enough resources for 20 years to feed us at our current level, but with every new person we save, those supplies go down. We've saved close to 5,000 people across the planet so far. Naruto replied, so many different things that need to do and so little time. Smiles and says, that's where you come in. You can give us a little more time with your taps. Go ahead and get one of the storage scrolls with 100 taps and get started between you both. It should take a few hours to tap 100 trees and then return to rest. 100 a day should stay within our production limits. Tenten and Naruto both nod, and Naruto loads 20 in his Buster Cannon. After grabbing a scroll, both teenagers departed, carrying the scroll, and made their way to the village gates. The guards promptly recorded their names and allowed them to pass once they reached the gates. Tenten asked, so how do you want to do this? After glancing at every tree. Naruto responded, let's start off by staying on what used to be a road here and walk straight away from the gates. I take the trees on the left, you take the ones on the right. If we do 50 each and then start circling around the village, it will give us some experience while also helping relieve some of Tsunade's worry about us. While snorting, Tenten remarked, she would still worry about you no matter what. As he tapped the first tree with his Buster Cannon, Naruto grinned and said, probably let's get started. After he did it again, Tenten said, so what now? As they checked back in the village gate an hour later. Naruto stated, we could either go work with Shizune or we could take the rest of today off and go for a walk in the park. Let's take a stroll in the park. Tenten said it's good to see actual trees once more, as opposed to the ones we saw outside the gates, now that the trees have been restored. Tenten grinned as they made their way to the park after Naruto nodded and took her hand. Hey you, the slut in the buns, a female voice said as they entered the park. I believed we advised you to avoid Naruto-kun. Both Tenten and Naruto noticed a number of girls staring at Tenten. Tenten turned to face them and remarked, back off bitches, he's mine. Then she seized Naruto and drew him into a kiss. As soon as they saw this, a number of girls screamed and ran towards Tenten, who broke the kiss and, much to Naruto's surprise, started beating the living daylights out of the other girls. Naruto turned when he heard a laugh behind him and saw Amy and Iruka. You see now why we told you to wait to rescue the fangirls, Naruto, Amy said. Looking back, Naruto saw Tenten dusting off her hands while the other girls were huddled on the ground, moaning in agony. Unfortunately, you were right, Iruka-sensei, he said. Hello, Amy, Iruka-sensei, Tenten said. How are you two today? We are doing well, but how long have you two been together? Iruka asked. We witnessed that kiss earlier. Officially today, said Tenten, flushed. Hasn't it been a month for you both? Yes, a month today, Amy said with a smile. Although Iruka was required for missions, it would have been longer. Have you seen Zero lately, Iruka-sensei? Inquired Naruto. According to Iruka, not in about 3 weeks. Gramps hasn't heard from him either, Naruto remarked, lowering his gaze. I hope he's doing well. Iruka said, so what have you both been up to? As Tenten took his hand and squeezed it. Naruto stated, we began putting taps on the trees outside the village today. Is Shizune still upset about not using the name she came up with for them? Amy asked, squinting. After Tenten gave a nod, Iruka asked, so what else has been going on with you both? It's been mostly training and research, aside from getting together and starting the taps, Naruto shrugged. I see, Iruka said. To see how far you two have come, we ought to spar sometime, particularly since you are now leaving the village. After pulling Iruka's arm, Amy remarked, later we both have reasons to celebrate today. Let's let Iruka-kun go and let them have fun. Tenten grinned at Amy as she took Naruto by the arm and started to drag him in the opposite direction from Amy and Iruka. After glancing briefly at Tenten, Iruka, and Amy, Naruto asked, did I miss something? As Tenten felt Naruto put his arm around her back and his hand on her hip, she grinned, rested her head on his shoulder, and said, nope.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.